Bizarre Reality Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones. What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep conversational exploration into the fringes of social norms. I'm the one they call Shane, aka the original Shane Squatch, and today for you guys, I'm excited to have the one, the only Tex back with us, a fascinating guest who's always expanding into new projects. In this episode, though, we explore a wide range of topics, from societal narratives and conspiracies to the deeper philosophical questions about the nature of reality and spirituality. Tex shares his unique insights and experiences, challenging conventional narratives and encouraging others to think critically about the world around them. So join us on this journey of discovery and enlightenment. But before we get into this fascinating conversation, as usual, just a couple of quick news and updates. As I had mentioned on previous episodes, there is going to be a lot of new updates going into 2026. And one of the first ones that I'm announcing here is that the Patreon, I'm going to simplify it a little bit. I know nobody has the extra money for a bunch of different subscriptions all over the place, so I'm trying to make it a little bit easier for you guys. So instead of having two different tiers, I'm going to now be making it so that everybody will get full access for now just $2.50 a month. There's only going to be one tier over there, make it super duper simple. And with that one tier, you guys will get everything over there. So hopefully that'll help to grow the Patreon just a little bit as we go into the year. Just one of many things that I'm going to be trying to work out and try to give you guys a little bit more of what you guys might be interested over there. And the next update that I wanted to announce for 2026 is that I did end up shutting down the Twitch. The reason for that is that I'm going to try to focus more on the YouTube and the Rumble. I figured those are going to end up paying off a little bit more in the long run. So if you're already following on one of those two channels, I'll make sure that there's a little bit more focus over there. And moving on and talking about live shows, if anybody is interested in catching the next live episode of Bizarre Inquiries, that'll be happening on February 5th at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over there on the Bizarre Reality Media YouTube channel. That'll now be the only place that it's going live to make it, again, a little bit more simplified for you guys. So if anybody has any questions, clips, articles, or anything that they would like to submit for that, make sure you guys get it to us before then. But if not, as I usually say, we will pass it on to the next episode. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, sharing their experiences or encounters, or contacting me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can email me at inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com or bizarrerealitymedia@outlook.com. Or you guys could always call or text the Bizarre Reality Media hotline 24/7, and that number is 313-364-1551. And if you happen to miss that, it is available down in the show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome to the show, Tex from a plethora of different projects. I feel like every single time you come on the show, you're working on something different. But actually, I think you may be doing the same thing as last time you're on the show this time, right?
Well, I have two projects going simultaneously right now.
Yeah,
I have just been on your show last month with the pterodactyl episode that was representing Advanced Cryptozoology Exploration Society, ACES. And that is a strictly cryptozoology, natural philosophy based examination of the paranormal. I included a little bit of ghost hunting. I include a little bit of research into different fields of the paranormal investigative, because I do believe that a synergy of these approaches is best. I don't exclude anything from these fields or from any kind of discussion. The other project is Fuck Freemasons News. That is a continuation of the Beyond Top Secret Texan broadcast. And of course, that's the continuation of the mainstream text projects that started in 2018. And
that's when I first met you, was when you were Top Secret Texan? That was when I first met you originally.
Yeah, it was Top Secret Texan and Beyond Top Secret Texan, exactly. Kind of because it's like a battle of search engine optimization and trying to constantly escape shadow banning. And it's only been now it's starting 6 years. And then what a crazy ride it's been. But I kind of always am like, justifying the fact that I had to change names because shadow banning is a very real phenomenon. And I think anyone who has half a brain in their head realizes that, you and anyone can exist as a brand or a channel or kind of like a flagship program. But when they hit the brakes on you, deplatform you from YouTube, you have to change, or you're not allowed back on. Like, I'm still not really back on YouTube. I had 600 videos on YouTube and they just took away all those in, one click of a button.
I'm surprised they didn't bring your channel back, man. They've been bringing a lot of people's channels back lately, which definitely is a weird thing. I feel like there's some kind of secret agenda to that, but I'm surprised they haven't brought yours back, especially if they brought back like Charlie Robinson's, for example,
Well, no, that's the thing. I was about to say that there's many levels to this, and while there are people who got deplatformed and demonetized and are shadow banned for their own right, they are still connected to the system. I'm looking at Nick Fuentes, Alex Jones, these kinds, and even smaller minor figures that may say they are against the grain. They may say they're against the system. But there's a reason. There's a reason why you're only allowed to see certain people. Only certain people flourish.
You got to control both sides of the narrative.
Flourish. Well, let's say thrive and flourish, are allowed to operate, are allowed to kind of like get influence and allowed to kind of have some power to them. People who are real, who are independent, who are both a threat to the sheep, or both like seeking to wake up the sheep, have the power and the message to do so, and have the confidence to say no to the temptations of joining the Illuminati and its many different various forms. Because once you join, no matter how they allow you to be individual, you still have to kind of like edit and censor yourself. You will see this a lot, like Alex Jones versus Candace Owens. That's the thing going on now in like the mainstream conspiracy kind of world, where Alex Jones is kind of like, Candace Owens is crazy because she thinks that Israel killed Charlie Kirk, etc. And then you look into this.
That doesn't even seem like an off their theory. Like, just to throw this in there, that's probably one of the most probable theories. I'm not saying it's definitely the one, but out of like the handful of conspiracy theories that have been thrown, that is probably one of the most probable.
Yeah. But it's like Alex Jones, the conspiracy theory chief and president-in-chief, is telling people not to be conspiracy theorists and question power. And he's like, no, accept the mainstream logic. Hey, stop being anti-Semitic. You guys are just crazy with this like conspiracy. Then we have other fish to fry. You're like, we get, and you look into like say Alex Jones's track record, right? And I don't have to like really beat this point to death, but guys, clearly he's allowed to exist because he doesn't really question too much in the right direction, and he offers a lot for distraction. And he's constantly shifting his positions and it's like where he stands and his viewpoints and his different approaches, and it's clearly like something that they're utilizing.
Even the Sandy Hook thing too, they're definitely utilizing that to make an example out of him, because they made it sound like the entire show everything is going to get ripped out. Now how long has it been and nothing's happened? And I'm definitely going to say there definitely is a conspiracy to Sandy Hook. I'm not going to be on the other side of that for sure, but again, if you're going to try to pull something off like that, of course you're going to have to make a point out of somebody that wants to try to question it, and what not a better person than the king of conspiracy, Well,
we'll talk about that too. Like, okay, so that like, what you're allowed to talk about, what's de jure and what's kosher and what's like taboo and what's acceptable, even on the fringes. That becomes highly politicized identity politics. That becomes like woke logic shit, and it really becomes a drama fest. But it's like the idea of like YouTube though allowing people back on channels. There are hundreds of channels that they will never allow back on. There are hundreds of people that you will never be allowed to see. Really, like, algorithm won't feed you the videos. And the reason why is because they are lone wolves. They're rogue elements. They're wild cards. Like myself, I have a history of contact with insiders, with outsiders, with people in high places within the conspiracy and paranormal world, all within these last couple of years. And it really started around 2020 when I was like really doing it full time.
No disrespect towards you by any means, but it feels like when I first came around and first I actually started to get to know you a bit, you had a lot more of a platform. I don't mean that in any like disrespectful way, but I felt like you had a lot more people that were listening to you. And now it's like I never really hear too many people talk about you anymore, which is unfortunate.
No, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, the reason why I have to change the name and everything is why I had to get changed to Fuck Freemasons News, is because Beyond Top Secret Texan was actually deplatformed from Spotify, and to get back on it, the Spotify, I had to change my name, as well as to operate under a different flag, because no one will talk to any, because it's like a blacklist thing. It's like a blackball thing. As the Beyond Top Secret Texan, and as the Fuck Freemasons News things, the internal networking of the podcasting world, the internal networking of conspiracy people, it's like, man, I am a pariah. I am an exile. I am untouchable by anyone. I have reached out to people. I used to be on interviews. I used to have people interviewed on my channel, everything. And then it just kind of like, bam. And it's because there are limits and levels to this. And it's like 100%, they will kill you if you reach this platform that's too high and are too dangerous. They will do everything in their power to limit that from ever happening. And they've gotten so sophisticated at doing that it's basically like, yeah, unless it's like they don't really have to do that, like silencing, these people, but they do it all the time. They still do that shit all the time. YouTubers die all the time, very mysteriously.
Yeah, and it's always people that ended up stumbling onto something weird too. So you kind of have to, look for pattern recognition in that one.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. So like you look at and this is past COVID. This is and I don't fit the controllable, put people in boxes, genre specific type people, and I have rattled a lot of cages inside the conspiracy world, inside the podcast world, inside the occult world, because of I have a very confident and very clear picture in my head of what's reality and what I've experienced and what everything else is. And also, I'm not a follower. I don't do this for money, and I don't expect to ever really do it for money. If anything, it was for street cred, and it was for the legitimacy of for legitimacy of just being able to say what was on my mind, and it was like a desire to do so, and it's a reflection of the culture that we're in, that you're nobody unless you are online. Like, you're nobody unless you're online and on the web. You're nobody unless you have a YouTube channel that's doing numbers.
It's true, dude. You'll sit there and talk about conspiracies,
Twitter pod,
and nobody wants to hear anything, but all of a sudden you make a podcast and all of a sudden a bunch of people all over the world start listening. But in your normal life, you talk about any of this stuff and not one person wants to hear it.
No, exactly. Like, that's the thing. Like, no one's going to my fucking night job or my day job and being like, hey, what do you think about the Khazarian mafia and stuff? And I'm like, sir, this is a Wendy's. Like, but that's the thing, like, and this is giving me the opportunity to do so, but it's important information. And I was on the anti-Semitism grind, is what I was on that shit years before even Kanye West and stuff. And I'm not an anti-Semitic person. I'm not a Nazi or anything neo-Nazi. I'm just like, I was doing some research, and I don't think the Holocaust is real. Like,
pattern recognition, though, man. I can't say that enough. Once you start seeing patterns, you see it constantly.
You were like, I don't know where to go with this, but I was doing some math, and it turns out that if you had like some ovens, it doesn't make any sense. And it wasn't even that. It wasn't even that. It was studying communism in Europe and the rise of communism in World War II, where I was like, holy shit, they lied about the Holocaust because the communists did the fucking Holocaust, and you're like, holy shit, they fucking lied about this.
See, this is the hard part that I've been trying to explain to people for a really long time, but it's such a hard concept for people to get. Like the Illuminati, these elites, these people that are out to get you, there's not like a single head to the snake. They're not all following one particular thing. It's a philosophy. You know, it doesn't matter if you cut the head off the snake, it's going to pop up over here. It's going to pop up over there. It's a bunch of different groups that are all moving towards the same thing because they share a common philosophy. It's not one particular person, one particular group. So you can't ever fully cut the head off the snake. So it's like, again, going into this whole thing about following these certain groups of people that start causing issues around the world and then they bounce around. I'm not even saying it's exactly that group of people. I'm saying it's a philosophy that somebody within that group carries, that they're carrying on, and other people are following that philosophy again. You know, like that's the hard part for people is you sound like you're talking about a particular group of people all the time, but it's not. It's like it's a group hidden within that group. But it's hard to exactly call that group something specific because there's so many people that follow it unnamed.
Well, it's like if I started talking about like capitalism and money, right? Like I said, like if I started talking about like, you know, money is the root of all evil. I didn't make that up. The money's the root of all evil. People have been saying that for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, maybe even longer than Jesus Christ was alive, right? Money's the root of all evil. Anyone can like with a fucking soul will understand greed, avarice. Men kill each other for gold, and I'll just run you through with a sword, stab you right through your liver, and watch you die on my blade to pick up your coin purse type thing, right? We all know this, but then if you say that out loud, then oh no, it becomes a political idea, and they're like, oh, what? You hate capitalism, you're communist, and you're a bad person because you're a communist, and you have these like views, and it's all a form of sorcery. It's all a form of divorcing you from your own intuition of what's good and what's wrong and what's beautiful and what's, you know, free and happy and what you should be doing. Because then you become it's not about what you want to do, what like you truly want to do, how you truly feel, but it's what you should be doing, these obligations, society versus the individual. And then if you say like, well, if you look at it, poor people do all the crimes, rich people don't do the crimes. So poor people are unethical. They're the ones who are poor because they're, you know, evil and everything. And they have these like negative aspects. So we just, you know, have the system that we do. Like, but it's like the statistics still don't erase the fact that it's an evil world created because money is the root of all evil, and that there's greedy people, and that, you know, the root of the evil is still unaddressed, even though you're trying to address the evils of this system. The same thing with all systems, and the evil that men do is usually done with the best of intentions. The evil that men do is typically idealistic. It's idealistic to a fault, to the point that they are negating humanity and justice to fit idealism. And idealism is at the heart of all cults. All cults, Christian cults, Islamic cults, Jewish cults, pagan cults, atheist cults, any cults. Idealism, which they can say, for example, like the idea of like, would you go back in time and kill a baby Hitler? You know, and the ideals of saving human life. And they want to get you to digest that kind of principle. Would you do something so morally, physically taboo to say, you know, save?
It's justified.
Justified. Would you justify whatever consequences of our actions for the greater system of our good? And currently the world is ruled by like Freemasons and, you know, like Knights Templar and these different royal aristocratic orders and the banking families and, you know, the corporate titans, the tycoons, and, you know, all these different, like the killers, the death cultists, you know, who rule through fear, et cetera, the warlords, the mafiosos, the cartel leaders, et cetera. And you know, they're all idealists. It doesn't matter if they worship Lucifer, if they worship Moloch, if they worship Baal, if they worship the Christian God, if they worship the Pope, if they worship themselves. They're humanists, you know, they're atheist humanists, and they don't believe in God. They only believe in science. They're committing these massive acts of injustice, like say Zionists in Israel against the Palestinians, disregarding their lives, disregarding justice and these core principles of greater altruism and really kind of like the Christ kingdom inside all of us, this idea of fairness and equity and love. For these ideals, they're willing to literally create hell on earth in the name of heaven, whatever their heaven is. This is universal. This is a loop. This is a flat circle that we're all in. It doesn't matter if you're fighting for the Persian Empire and you're enslaving fucking, Jerusalem, in the name of the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar, or if you're bombing Germany in an RAF bomber in World War II, lighting cities on fire in revenge bombings because they did the Blitz. It doesn't matter if you are killing a rival drug lord or drug dealer in your neighborhood because he's selling crack at your park basketball court, and that's where you make your money because you got to feed your kids. The evil that men do are always justified, and I would really like the idea of religious debating, but not the idea that these things are real. And anything my research into all of this has shown me that the only thing that is invariably real is the human heart. And like Jesus said, all evil originates from the human heart. But all good does too, all love. It's your heart is weighed against the feather in Egyptian canon of the dead. It's the human heart. It's human emotion.
And that's why it has to be destroyed and manipulated.
Well, that's really, we're our own worst enemies. And so, I don't believe in a devil. I don't. I believe in Satanists. I believe in the devil worshipers. But it's just people. It's people who, in their hearts, are justifying these great evil and hedonistic acts, and the cruelties and injustice against others because it's a power play for them. It's how they survive. But it's just people. It's just the human heart. It's the same heart that I have in my chest, the same heart that you have in your chest. It's the same heart that we all have. It's the heart of the people you're saving from them, the children you're saving from them. But it's also the heart of the people doing it. And when people realize that, they'll start, making more progress to fundamentally understanding what is good and what goodness is and why goodness exists. And more fundamentally that, instead of thinking that there are evil demons and forces and invisible, jinn or whatever that are possessing men, and that men are feeding people into reptiles and stuff, like reptilians and stuff. Even though I do believe in all that, I just don't think that's the source of it. I think it really is. This is the nature of us, the nature of the human beast. Knowledge of good and evil. I
definitely agree with that. That kind of gets into the whole concept of free will to begin with. Nobody is inherently good or evil necessarily. It all depends on, what happens in your life, what events end up, transpiring, and what ends up cause and effect, basically. If you're raised in a certain environment, then you're going to get off on certain things. If you're raised in this environment, you're going to get off on other things. Oh, yeah. So if you're raised in this abusive, traumatic environment, then of course you're going to want that power to shift, and eventually you're going to want to be the one that's in control. So it's going to shift that power system where now you're going to be the one who's trying to manipulate the others, which is what happens with all these elitists, all these big families and everything. It's not even necessarily a matter of they're inherently evil. It's a matter of they've been doing this stuff for generation, that they've literally traumatically trained their family to think and perceive a certain way. And when you have groups on groups of different people doing this, then now you have this generation, or these, generations of these people that assume themselves to be these evil, demonic type beings, but that's never necessarily it in the first place. Again, it was the fact that they were raised to become that.
Exactly. And say, for example, we were talking about the censorship that we were going through with YouTube and stuff, and censorship that anyone would face if they're speaking the truth. That censorship is derived and executed from the idealistic standards of greater good national security type thinking. It may be occult in origin, Freemasons. I believe I was censored when I started talking against Freemasons, when I started talking specifically against the Talmudic Kabbalists, and when I started talking about the different, I guess you would call it elements inside the military who are spiritual and mystical.
See, this is what I've been trying to say a little bit earlier, that it's not a snake. It's not like the Illuminati. These are the people. It's that there's all these different people that are in all these different places that share a common philosophy. So there's not a group. It's just a matter of they all share a common goal. It's such a hard thing to explain to people that everybody wants to have this particular enemy, but it's not set up like that. And it's purposefully not set up like that.
Well, what I was going to elaborate more about what I was going to say is that so instead of being like a rabid like say you can talk bad about the Jews like for example Nick Fuentes. It's objectively you can be a Kanye West. You can say that kind of stuff if you don't really connect the dots correctly. If you don't really portray them in that human way, that real light that shows them what they really are. And it's not like I'll show you how nasty you really are, but I'll show you just that you are understandable. You are not a monster. You're a known quantity. I can look in the mirror and I can look into your eyes. I can look into my eyes. These are we have power over this. The common man has power over this. We're not fighting fucking boogeymen in eyes wide shut masks. We're fighting our own cowardice, our own inability to lead ourselves, to break away, to like our own fear. Your inner fear is your worst enemy. You could have all of these, death cultists, baby killers, war criminal, fat billionaire, Elon Musk, Soros paid type people outside your door. The idea, though, is that are you willing to live and die on your feet, or are you going to live and die on your knees? It's just that simple. And the idea is that when you get warnings online, you get emails, you get anonymous little messages on your phone, texts, you get what they did to me once in 2022. Not proud of it, not bragging, not doing anything new. I'm all human and everything. When I started going online, making podcasts, and I started talking to girls, start talking to people online, Instagram especially, this is COVID era, so people were really willing to chat and be social online, sexy pics, here you go, flirt, whatever. I was single at the time. I'm in my 30s. These girls were in their all different ages, 20s, whatever. This was all a honeypot. Like one of them especially was, and I knew that they had connections to the military. I knew they were in the ROTC when they were younger. I knew they were actually on boats for the Coast Guard and stuff like that. But I was fine with it. And then what happened was a lot of my internal messages, a lot of the stuff was used against me. Not that it ruined me or anything like that, but they'll do that. They'll, what they try to do, which is what they did to me, which is they'll have files on anyone, they'll do that. They'll
when I started coming up and I started having issues with other people in the community, messages started coming out that I don't know how anybody got a hold of that came from my shit too. So I mean, definitely there's a database on this stuff, man. I've even had something very similar happen to me with this instance.
Yeah, no, I don't want to be too graphic or anything, but what happened was the way I found out about it was that person was like, oh, what's this online? And then I looked up and it was a site from the Ukraine or whatever the fuck, and it had all of my personal shit on there. And I was like, what? This doesn't make any fucking sense at all. This is just weird. And they were like, well, this is this is such a great scandal and everything. And I was like, I just got to get away, get aboard. And that's the whole point with changing your names, because that was what the kind of motivation was, is because every time I stay in one lane too long under one name, you start attracting, you become a target, and anyone who stays still as a sitting duck. And basically, no matter what, anyone you interact with online as a podcaster, as something like that, there's a good chance that they're working for it. I say this out loud, but I think people now get it. I think people now understand. Espionage, agency, private or public, bot account. They could be AI. They could be fucking somebody from India, posing as somebody trying to get information for the Mossad. I don't want to say details, and because that always makes people it has to be just the one thing. No, it could be anything. Anything. Every nation has an intelligence agency. Every nation and every group has feelers in the ground, especially in grassroots organizations like this, which is the only place people are talking about. It's very easy. They don't have to put people like in fucking Roblox servers, and like, hey, you guys thinking about the government? They just go to the guy who's like making videos about that shit, and they're like, hey, let's talk to this guy. I one time, like, and this is not even like that long ago, it's like 2024, had people try to get me to join a militia group and work on destructive devices like Gatling guns and stuff. And I was like, I'm not going to be entrapped this easily. Like, the idea behind it, like,
dude, I mean, even just some of the stuff that I research, like going on to like the deep web and stuff like that, dude, like there's people that'll try to get you to pull onto other sites, and that's that honeypot shit, dude, because you go onto the wrong site and now you have something on your IP address or something that's trackable that you're on like a child porn site or something, dude, like you're fucked. And they know that a lot of us that are diving into this type of stuff, dude, we are going on the deep web looking for information. So how hard is it? I mean, it's not that far off that somebody might click the long link and now you got blackmail on them. Like, even if you have something set up where it's like, it looks like it's a solid, web address that's actually going to what you're looking for. And the next thing you know, boom, your entire computer's flooded with something. Like, if you start going too far onto that track, dude, they got their countermeasures.
Yeah, if they wanted to, they could easily have killed me physically, or if they wanted to, they could easily throw you in jail for whatever trumped up charge, especially child porn charges. The idea behind that is, I think that they're limited by some forces of spiritual goodness, I think. And that's the thing. I think if you're not truly guilty, if you're not truly playing both sides, they can't really pin it on you. Like I said, I didn't do anything. I'm not saying I was like doing stuff. And that's the thing. I smoke like weed. I do all these like things that are basically misdemeanors all the time. And I used to be like really into like a lot worse things. And the idea behind it is that they know all of that. They know all of it. They obviously, I think, I'm not putting it above the fact they probably listen in, created 3D prints of the Wi-Fi signature of the house.
Dude, you're not going to get a podcast or some internet guy on smoking weed, though. They're looking for the stuff that's actually going to destroy their reputation. Whether you're doing meth at your house, you're doing any illicit drugs, dude, it's not going to take away from what you're doing for like your research. Like, that's not the way to attack like a person that's like a podcaster, for example.
I'm saying like, say like people who are, I say like people who are, I don't even say this, like they're not hardcore pedophiles, but they're open-minded to it. People who are perverts of their own right, possibly gay in the closet or something like that. People who, we say, they get the people like in the catch a predator thing. Someone has to answer those texts. Someone has to like, hey, come inside the house. You have to walk inside the house yourself though, but then they get you and they fucking set you up. That's what if you're not like a I'm not a bastard. I'm not fucking doing nothing.
They can't drag you into the house. You have to walk into the house yourself.
Yeah, they can't just be like, knock, knock, and there's a little girl on your porch, and the cop's like, what's going on here? It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. But if you, like, stepped outside to look for it, then they fucking sting you.
Yeah, you got to walk into it. They can't just, like, set it up fully. It has to be something that's within your wheelhouse that you will at least partially walk into it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, well, the idea behind even that, like, what they did try to do and what they have kind of, like I said, like, times are changing. We're getting more open-minded. We're getting more accepting to like weed. Like in the 90s, if you were a radio show host, if you were a conspiracy theorist who wrote books or whatever, like an Alex Jones or a Bill Cooper, and you smoked marijuana publicly, that would be a scandal. And that would probably be ruining your reputation because, of course, you're talking about UFOs and the CIA and the government. You're on weed, etc. And we all know that's stupid. And we all know that's just not the case in reality. All these people have always smoked weed, and weed's existed in our society since the very beginning and everything like that. And like this, all the weed is just part of what America is. You just keep it on the table kind of thing. But then like, now that's nothing. That's like, well, yeah, you're like, I do it for my back pain. Like, you want to get serious? It's fucking for my back pain. This is legal CBD. I buy this shit online. Like, this is not a taboo anymore. Yeah, this is like veteran grow. It's like,
I'm still pretty convinced though that even all the founding fathers, they had to grow hemp fields anyways. At some point, you can't tell me that almost anybody that was growing hemp fields didn't try to smoke some of the herb, especially knowing that they were like pipe smokers. They're all smoking tobacco and stuff. Like, no doubt in my mind, dude, like all the people that were founders of this country were smoking at least some of the stuff in their hemp fields, I'm sure.
Every single person in modern and all of society throughout history, if they had access to cannabis, used cannabis. It's not even a debate. Every single ancient society, every single modern society, if they had access to cannabis, used cannabis prolifically. The Dutch, for example, have a reputation in Amsterdam of being very open-minded to weed. It doesn't grow in Amsterdam. They went out, found it on islands and stuff, and were like, yeah, man, this is some shit. And then, like, the idea behind it, like, the British had Jamaica, and the British don't want to talk about their history with weed. Everyone in England smoked weed. Yeah, Shakespeare had cannabis in his pipe. In his house.
Hemp was like the main thing that they'd make paper out of. The Declaration of Independence was written on hemp paper. I mean, like this.
It's not even a fact they were smoking hemp byproduct. They were smoking cultivated flower because it had the potency. No, like tobacco leaves. They smoked it for the effect. They didn't like the idea of teetotaling, prohibition-minded American censorship of reality is a fundamental element of why we're here today talking like as truth tellers, as people who speak the truth, who look for the truth. And everything we look for, everyone calls us crazy for looking for. It's because America is built on lies. America is a fucking like insane asylum where the patients have the keys and they're the ones, walking around just giving the medicine out. And the whole point of the dystopian Orwellian reality of being American is that we're the most lied to, misinformed, miseducated, uneducated, ignorant, dark age society to ever exist in the position of power that we do, where technically you could learn anything and everything under the sun, but never at an American public school. Like, yeah, no, that's all Wikipedia and fucking your own critical thinking. And the whole critical thinking is that, like, when Lincoln wrote in his diary that his favorite thing to do was sit on his porch, look at the sunset and smoke his hemp pipe, and things like that. Like, they were growing it specifically to cultivate the stronger and stronger flower. And it's not because, like I said, the whole reason why people resist this is because the Prohibition Nixon era DEA funded from the top down propaganda, Nancy Reagan, just say no. And the idea behind this, you're not immune to propaganda. No one is. I'm not. I lived under that shame and burden too. Or when I was smoking in 2005 for the first time at the age of 18 in college, I thought I was the first fucking person to ever do that, and I was going to go to hell. That's not the case. It's clearly, I was saying you're not like it's the traditions of Americans. Like I ever say, 2005, 1995, there's someone lighting up for the first time going, man, is this stuff like legit? Like, are we going to hell for this? Like, are we going to jail? And it's like, no, man, listen to Pearl Jam and just fucking chill out. Alice in Chains and stuff. I was like in 1985 and somebody's lighting up a fucking joint for the first time. Just like, what, are we fucking going to jail?
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show. Dude, it's crazy now that we're not even fully federally legal, and just being in a legal state, Michigan's been a legal state for a while. We've gotten to the point now where it's like, I'm part of the generation where I was always taught to like hide when you smoke, so I got like my pens, I'll puff on it here and there and stuff. But like the new generation, like Gen Z and stuff, like they basically were already in high school when everything was already starting to get legalized. So it's like, they just will walk down the street smoking. Like, it's such a different mindset, and it's not even like a full generation like apart, like we're all existing within the same time, but one side of it like wants to hide it and the other side's like, woo, yeah, whatever, out in the open. Wait, I'm not supposed to smoke here? Like, it's crazy like how fast that shifted.
Or if you think of things like in generational, just not even generational, cities, like geographical, like there are parts, like I said, states where it's not legal. Texas is not legal. It is not open. It's not like you got to find people walking around smoking numbers or anything like that. I remember going to Colorado and just seeing a guy like fucking rolling a joint at a table at a Starbucks.
Oh, dude, that's what Michigan's like, especially the Detroit area, dude. Anytime you walk down the street, you'll walk past somebody smoking a blunt walking down the street, and nobody's going to say nothing.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, and in Texas, it's not like that at all. In Texas, it's like, it's not like when you drive around, I put my shit up in like a little like compartment in my car, and I'm like puffing it kind of secret. No, I say like it's the same thing. Texas, it's legal. That's cultural. That is a cultural propaganda. That's what I do.
Like I'm hiding it in my pocket and stuff, even though I don't need to. Like,
yeah. You're living in fear. You're self-censoring. You're self-policing, and it's not a victim. It's like, and the idea of it is that it's an inward acceptance of power and authority in a submissive way that we don't even know the limits of the kind of that behavior or what we actually are afraid of because of that. Like if you can see that behavior in yourself when it comes to this, right? When you can see how.
That's the only reason that paranoia is a side effect of cannabis for older generations. Younger generation doesn't get paranoia like that, but it's only because we grew up in the illegal generation, so we get paranoid because of that, simply. Because you feel like you're doing something wrong, like the cops are going to come for you. If it wasn't for that, you wouldn't feel paranoid.
Imagine that intellectually. Imagine that politically. Imagine that historically. That is the feeling that I think that all of my projects and everything try to like fight against. And that I think is not fought against at all in the mainstream kind of way, because I think that it's such a fundamental part of being American and being a person. Like it doesn't matter even about American, like Europeans, anyone. You're shackled in so many chains and you don't even know that you're making them yourself, or like someone made them for you and you think you have to wear them. And the idea is that like it's the fear quality. It's like, like you were taught so many rules and you think you have to obey them.
Like language is a prime example. I mean, U.S., you can literally say whatever you want, but part of that is that you're, freely can get it ridiculed back. But everybody thinks that it's illegal. Like, you can't say that. You know what I mean? You can say whatever the hell you want. You can say the N-word. You can say the R-word. You can say whatever you want. But again, you just have to face the ridicule on the back end. Like, it's nothing bad. There's nothing illegal about it. That's your freedom.
Like a lot of it is face the censorship. Exactly, face the censorship and everything, and that's like kind of like an ebb and flow, and I get give and take of it. But like even then, the censorship is like we accept it.
People censor themselves at home in private with like their close friends, though. That's like the one time it's like all bars off. You can say whatever you want at that point.
Well, we accept being deplatformed from social media. It's not constitutional. It's not even ethical. What we do is we accept terms of use and conditions or whatever, terms and conditions. And what we do is we submit to a dictatorship voluntarily through a private app or whatever, a private website facilitating service, whatever social media wants to call itself, right? Facebook, Zuckerberg. We have surrendered our constitutional protections and rights and even ideas of ethical existential reality. Like no one today looks at themselves with the same philosophical gravitas of like a human rights lawyer or like an ethics professor or like, someone who wrote like the idea of like what it even means to be a real person with dignity and rights and power and say you get a vote, whatever. No one can hurt you. No one can like physically, like no one can walk up and abuse you because you have dignity and you're worth something. You're as special as anyone else. No one even looks at themselves that way anymore. They think of themselves as like these like it's like I don't know, ghosts in the machine. This like when you join Instagram, when you join Facebook, and it's like, if you try to act free, if you try to just do whatever you want, you're going to get banned immediately, either shadow banned or not. Like on COVID, 2020, when I came out with podcasting on YouTube, etc. If you said anything bad about COVID or even anything speculative about COVID, they would immediately nuke your channel. And then, like suffer the consequences of the shaming. But you were right. Like anyone who questioned that was ethically correct. Anyone who voiced their opinion was ethically correct.
Every single one of my old episodes got flagged for medical misinformation, which ironically is all coming out as being correct now. So technically they should go back and unmark my stuff as medical misinformation because it was correct in the first place.
Exactly. And it's not even like, and see, that's something that's very obvious. That's a very obvious us versus them kind of system. But it was us versus us because the majority of the people that I got flack from weren't even the real authorities. Because like I was able to like just not talk about it. I just like, no, it's not my issue. So I'm just like, but personally, whenever I tell my opinion about people, that was the real like challenge, like having people at the store tell me to put on a mask and then get in my face as if though this was going to be like, something to fight over, physically fight over. Like I have people making hourly wages at fucking the grocery store willing to die.
Dude, everybody that got in your face about a mask during COVID are people you could definitely put on the ground within 2 seconds, though. There was never some like big tough motherfucker in your face telling you put on a mask. Like there was never a situation like that.
But the concept of it is just ridiculous. The concept of it is like, imagine if a world where no justice existed or where no one even had a concept of justice. Americans worship justice, and ideally we do. Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. These are people who fight for common people, for everyday people, against bullies, against the villains that are going to threaten them and hurt them. And in reality, the enemy is the people. The enemy is not all of them, but the idea is that this internalized zombification, this zealotry, that they had people walking. Like you couldn't get a job unless you submitted to vaccinations and a mask. And now we pretend that didn't happen because it's so shameful. But we are the people that allowed it. I didn't do it, but they are the people that allowed it. The same people who are still managers at that fucking grocery store are the same ones that were like standing there, like everyone wears a mask or you don't get to shop today. Watch the movie Edinburgh or whatever, that movie that came out with Joaquin Phoenix in it and Oscar Patel and all them, and it's about that. Like it doesn't matter if you're the sheriff of the town, because Joaquin Phoenix's character is the sheriff of town and he doesn't like the vax mandates. You're considered a pariah, a freak, someone to be like mocked and vilified, and like you have to carry a cross around. Basically, the idea behind. What that really like you were right. You're always like existentially you were in the right. You were right before. You are the sheriff. Like in a sense, what a madhouse, right? What is right? What is wrong? What is okay? What is good? What is bad anymore?
Well, this is part of the psychological diversion, though, is that they want to make it so that nobody knows good or bad anymore. Like, this is something I've been talking about forever on the show, dude. Every single kids movie starts off from the perspective of the bad guy ends up turning good. Like, there's never this, like, defined good versus evil anymore. Like, they've purposely tried to blend these lines as, like, a big psychological operation. I mean, even, like, even within like kid shows, like everything, dude. Like they've blurred it so much that nobody actually knows which side to follow anymore. Like even you were talking about the superheroes, man. Everybody associates more with the anti-hero now, and that's the reason for it. Nobody associates with the true hero anymore because nobody can actually say that this is true good or this is true evil. Everybody kind of like sits on the fence and realizes that the best place is to kind of have opinions from both sides, which is again where the anti-hero kind of concept really kind of comes in. But I don't know if that's even a good thing, like I said, because there needs to be defined good versus evil. Like, when everything starts to blur, then that makes it so that people can't actually follow morals as proficiently as they should be able to. Because, I mean, let's be 100% honest, man. The average IQ of most people probably isn't as high as it should be. So you have to keep things as simple as possible for people. And if people don't have this simple concept of good versus evil, the average person is going to turn into just a horde mentality of just chaos.
No, see, they say that. No, that's a good point. A lot of the reason, like you said, it's a bunch of different heads of the snake, right? Like a hydra. And all of these heads of snake are hoping for equilibrium where they're at the top of the power, but chaos we'll toss all that equilibrium asunder. They'll fall to the bottom. Some will rise to the top, etc. And they want to keep it where they're on top and people are on the bottom. And the idealism behind that is that people are savage, politically, philosophically. This is old. This is like from the 1700s, 1800s. This is like Leviathan, Milton's Leviathan. This is like fucking Thomas Hobbes and shit. This is fucking like ideas of humanism, where mankind is considered, without society, without laws, a brutal, short, savage existence. Rape, murder, cannibalism, Fallout type shit, and when you see in that, right, like the novel Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies is a classic British novel written by an MI5 intelligence asset agent.
Just like all the classics.
Yeah, I'll make a point of this. I'll loop it all around. The Power Elite, in which he read an article about kids who had shipwrecked and marooned on an island during a vacation. And instead of fighting and killing each other, they worked together and they survived. That's human nature. It's been documented multiple times that in crisis, especially when authority is erased and people have to voluntarily create society, people are incredibly adept at just working together and getting along. At peace and community and friendship, that is the magic of the man. That is the magic of mankind. It's the milk of human kindness, right? The idea that it doesn't matter if you're black or white. If you're two people and you have to survive, you could be from two different nations. The enemy mine concept, the Russian American, the Japanese American guy surviving on Skull Island. We're going to look past our differences. We're just going to get home and not, we're going to live. Like I said, I entrust my safety to everyone I go outside and drive along the road with, because it's in our best interest to survive and to get along and to not fucking shoot each other up, etc. And, not crash our vehicles together, because we know how important that is. They're expensive and our safety is vital, etc. We have loved ones. And I don't know those people. I drive on those roads in my hometown every day, and I don't know a single person I drive next to. I don't know if they're drunk, high, sober, black, white, man, woman, tall, short, religious, atheistic, angry, happy. I don't know if they're miserable child predators or if they're saints in disguise, but I have to trust my safety with them. That is a social contract. That's the reality. These people operate, and he wrote the book because he was obsessed with this story. He was a pedophile, and he wanted to create Gorevore, basically. And people need to realize this, that their insanity, because remember, they're abused. This is the system of abuse that they're born into, creates extreme pornography and extreme sexual it's always the source of these metaphors. Lolita, for example, Marquis de Sade's 120 Days of Assad. The elites are fast, all their books, all the books of the elite, and Lord of the Flies, all of them. I went through literature classes in college. They're all just about perversions that rich, intelligent people think about and meditate on and are fascinated with, sexual violence and rape. Faulkner wrote a book called I forget what it was, Scorn or something like that, in which a woman is raped with a corn cob and then forced into prostitution. And he won a Nobel Prize for literature in America. And he's considered one
It's the Sigmund Freud psychology concept that he says that basically all trauma is linked to something sexual, which later on results in a sexual act.
Well, in this case, rewriting a book about human survival and human cooperation and human, kinship, man's humanity towards man, into a savage, pornographically detailed descent into madness and savagery, in which shirtless young boys are, preying on each other like tribal savage. Remember, it goes into the idea of racism and ethnocentrism and cultural centrism, and see, this is what happens if you don't have authority and you don't have this generational control and trauma and self policing and stuff from bigger, more if you don't have the monopoly of violence held over your head, then you will just eat the fat, weak kid in your group, and aren't you fucking bastards, and etc. That is propaganda. That's a lie. So that's the propaganda that it starts back then. You can see it then. Walking Dead, same shit. People can't be trusted. People, if the state wasn't here, if the military wasn't here, if the police weren't here, people would just kill and rape each other constantly and then eat each other physically, literally. Fallout. The popularity of these franchises is because they're pushed by the government. Every single video game, for example, is just you can't trust people. You have to fight people. People, if they could, would have guns and just be walking around the street killing each other. This is propaganda.
That's a continued psyop that you see all over the internet too, though, because I'm sure you're probably going to go around to the point, but you're seeing this in culture nowadays with all these different groups.
Well, I was going to say, the idea is they're starting riots and stuff, and then you look into it, statistically, you look into it. I fell into it. I was a survivalist for almost 10 years. I was a hardcore survivalist. I had guns. I had a stash of bullets. I had prep stuff. I was going to, Alex Jones said, kill and eat my neighbors, right, if I had to. I was really into the idea of social collapse. And then you just wake up one day and realize that's not what humanity is about. That they've got you imprisoned in a cell of your own making, and in the fear and paranoia of others. And the hatred of others. And society, if it was like that, wouldn't even deserve to exist. Because if that was really what we're talking about, why would you want to propagate and continue a species that's this hostile towards itself? The idea is how would we even get America started if we all were just savage, backstabbing murderers? Because we didn't even exist with electricity back then. It was just guys in stockings, with horses and carriages, and they weren't killing each other. They weren't fucking hitting each other in the back of the head with axes and stealing their cabins. No, the idea is that everyone has a soul. Everyone has guilt and morality. And that's it. You don't want to extend that dignity to other people because it's not even other men. It's you have to see that there's fairness in children. There's fairness in old people. There's fairness in minorities, black people, anyone. There's fairness in everyone, even other men. The idea you can't trust the savages. You can't trust other men because they're going to take us and be warlords and gangs. And, women are fine. Kids are fine. Old people are fine. But it's these men. Well, that's just, it limits brotherly love. It limits fraternity. And these secret societies are ran on fraternity. They're ran on brotherly love. They're ran on identifying with an in-group so strongly that they trust each other and obey each other and thus can work together. Like the CIA, you don't kill other CIA agents. You don't CIA the CIA. You're all on the same fucking team, You're all spies on the same team. You're not spying internally. And so it's considered taboo when one spy is spying on the other spies, for the enemy. It's the idea is they're strong because they have that trust in each other. They're strong because they have that in-group preference. They're strong because they are, working together as a team, no matter how elite they are and how small they are and how secret they are. They have us all planning to kill each other the minute anything goes bad. The minute society, a blackout happens, they want us to go full purge. It's why they made the Purge movies.
I was going to say, that was another one to throw in there too, because they normalize these concepts in people's minds.
Yeah,
and they make people think in that situation of what would you do in this situation? Just the whole concept as a whole, Fallout, the Purge, any of these situations. Anytime you watch any type of media that has doesn't matter what it is, the average person will put themselves in that position. So simply just by watching this, they're conducting a thought experiment on you because now you're putting yourself in that position of a character that's within that thing. So now you've normalized this concept in your head on what you would do in this specific situation. But again, it's the between the lines thing that you got to look at the dystopian idea as a whole. It's not specifically zombies. It's not specifically this. It's the whole dystopian society idea that everybody's attacking each other. That's the idea they're trying to normalize and instill. You got to read between the lines and look at the common similarities between all of these things and realize that that's what they're trying to push.
Exactly. And what it does is that so what happens is that people prioritize and start championing those that can fight others in an in-group and assert dominance and power. It becomes very savage. Like you say, like even a thing like conspiracy podcasting or paranormal investigating, you'll start seeing so much infighting from these agents, these provocateurs, these bad faith agents. They want people to start arguing because then they can start smearing other people, like attacking, insulting, vilifying, intimidating, ostracizing, spreading rumors, whatever, right? Like smear campaigns, because then that is considered normal. It's a normalized behavior. It's in fact considered a preferable behavior because that person's using, some kind of like chutzpah or something like that. It's a lot of, instead of having people all working together, instead of people having like networking potential or like say like you, and this has been thing, people started many groups before with the intention of cooperating and networking and sharing information.
This work properly within podcasting. There's always some type of hierarchy. Like, this is why I stay in my own sphere, which I'm sure you do the same thing, dude, is because this never works because somebody always has to shit on somebody else to get on top.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, it ultimately translates.
That's the main thing with podcasting is people gatekeep and they try to hold everybody below them.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, ultimately, you're like, well, it comes from the top down, right? And they like the people in power and the superpower of the world, like the actual power of the world, the people who control like all media and all literacy and all stuff. They were like, we don't like people. We don't trust the common man. We think the common man is like an evil thing. We'll influence through media, music, art, culture, news, etc. this image of man as something to be hated. People internalize that, and then they don't have to do a single thing. I've been a part of many group chats and discussions and Telegram groups and Discords and stuff like that over the years that started with the best intentions, sharing UFO videos, evidence, etc., and have quickly become derailed into cults of personality, fucking like literal cult-like behavior, calling people out, creating, divisions and schisms and fan groups, etc. And these are people who think like they're being talked to by aliens and shit. Like, these are people that you wouldn't think that would have such a bone to pick with each other. You wouldn't think the internal hostilities.
I mean, it makes sense within the conspiracy community because conspiracy theorists think that everybody and everything is a conspiracy. So if there's going to be one community that eats each other, of course it's a conspiracy community because everybody thinks that everybody else is a psyop. And I'm sure there are some psyops in there, but not every single person you come across is a fucking psyop.
Well, like, yeah, well, there is both. There is both. That's like there are people who unintentionally fulfill this angle of theirs. Like I said, it's all human nature. Now human nature has been corrupted because pop culture, media, etc. Doomers, black-pilled people, accelerationists, just doomers themselves are like fucking a huge chunk of the people you're gonna meet online. People who don't believe in anything. They're nihilists. They hate life. They hate life and they hate living because they've been brainwashed. They are wearing the chains that they forge in life: loneliness, desperation,
isolation.
Isolate. Exactly. No, the idea is like that's the point I'm trying to make is that, and so these are the people who kind of gravitate towards conspiracies and paranormal itself anyway, because it's the kind of like misfits and people on the fringe and people who have been kicked out of society.
People who've had traumatic events that see pattern recognition. That seems to be a pretty common one with a lot of people that I talk to in the community.
Yeah, and you talk to a lot of creatives. You talk to a lot of creators. You talk to a lot of independent creators. You give them voice and everything like that. And I would say that all those creators probably have their follower, like that, this activity, this drama, all within their communities, on their comment sections, people living parasocially through them, people trying to manipulate them or get inside their good graces or whatever, get their ear, people who think that they're talking only to them, these stalker type people, etc. These are people like I said, that's like it. You don't have to do anything as the elite. You allowed, you created such a poisoned seed. You created such a poisoned well inside people themselves that when they start forming in any groups, It's not even like a house of cards where at least it's held together until something shakes them up. It's it's
built on a shaky foundation.
Water and oil. Or it's water and oil. It's like the water is the good people, the people who are going with good intentions, who trust others, who want to like share their information. And then the oil is the people who, they want to control the conversation. They don't even care what the conversation is. They want to control it. They want to prove that someone is stupid or like prove that they're smarter than other people. And you see this on social media all the time. If you're on social media, like just comment sections, like just go through comment sections. It's cancer. It absolutely is cancer.
I mean, how hard is it to send out some bots though? Because I mean, I'm pretty convinced at this point that if there was a specific group that they are ever going to watch because they'd be afraid of some type of revolt or revolution, of course it's going to be the free thinkers and the conspiracy type people. So of course, that's the main group you don't want everybody to get along with. So I'm pretty convinced that even if there ever was a conspiracy group where everybody got along, there would either be some type of a flag that would happen where you'd get a bot that gets thrown in to start throwing out some weird comments, or if that doesn't happen to work, then they're going to try to throw somebody into that mix to try to break it apart. But I don't think that that's the group that's ever going to function, because as soon as there's word of there being a conspiracy group that gets along online, like that's the number one group you're going to want to go after. And a lot of people think that like, oh, they're not listening to the little guys. I don't think it's a matter of like they're literally sitting here listening to every single one of us. It's a matter of they have so many different bots and everything out on the internet that they just look for keywords. And once certain keywords come up a certain amount of times, then they flag it. And I'm sure that there's precautionary measures where the bots start trying to do little booby traps and everything, and they don't even get alerted until it gets to a point where they actually have to step in and take action. It's not that they're sitting and watching everybody. It's a matter of they have safety protocols set up to break these certain things apart at this point.
Also, I would challenge to say that they have full awareness of what's going on with AI, and AI was used, I think, before even ChatGPT by YouTube, for example, to edit and censor videos, especially during 2020 and that era, where if say like you make a video about like reptilians, you put it online. Instantly, there's a Wikipedia tab on the bottom of your video, and it says a link to reptilians or whatever, put Atlantis, and it's like a little Wikipedia thing. That means an AI went through everything, every audio in that video instantly, no matter how it's like hours long or whatever, and was like, oh yeah, this talks about Atlantis. This talks about reptilians. This talks about that. And it's not so much a human flagging process, but it's completely by the machine now. The cloud, the algorithm, all of it has that information, and it doesn't even need to be like, hey, Big Daddy CIA or whatever, NSA, we got somebody here. It'll just be like, it'll take the appropriate steps to start gatekeeping your information. Absolutely. At that point, like if you started a brand new YouTube channel, no cookies, brand new computer, no brand new burner number and everything, no way to like trace your back information, and you made one video, blank slate, and it was about like, something seriously weird, Illuminati, Bohemian Grove, something like that, child sacrifice ceremony, something like that. The AI would instantly fucking alert, like, hey, we got one here. And it would know what, it would already put you in like an industrialized, sanitization type thing where they're going to quarantine your channel. They're going to restrict your views. The algorithm completely closes up on you, etc. And this is instant. This is instantly now because the AI is already, like I said, there's not like an NSA agent who's bored having to go through fucking, endless hours of fucking public radio and shit like that, because that's what YouTube is. It's public radio, public TV.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show. But that's why everybody thinks it sounds ridiculous, is because they think there's literally a person sitting there doing it. Like, the technology has advanced to a point now where it's like, it's plain and obvious right in front of you, yet people still don't think they're getting like fully listened or watched. And again, especially in this community, dude, people are getting flagged for particular things. And I'm starting to see this pop up everywhere, man. Like, this is what I think is the new age of sleeper agents. It's not that they're actually taking people and like trying to do some type of MK Ultra experiments or anything like that to people. It's a matter of they'll look for these certain flags flags within people's web searches. And when they say, all right, this person has this, and this. And then once they say, all right, we already kind of have like a fresh slate to start with here. And then they'll start throwing information out at them. Like they'll come at them and say like, hey, have you ever been part of this group? Have you ever done this? They'll start throwing these little things at them. And then eventually it builds up where essentially they have probable deniability because they never actually took the person, did anything to the person. But because of doing all these little things around them, they've pushed them into being the sleeper agent. And then they push them into doing something. And then either one, they'll slide in real quick and they'll look like the heroes, or two, they'll fall back for a second and then something will happen and then they'll be like, oh no, we knew nothing about it. We had no warning. We didn't know what to do at this point. Like this is what I think is like the new age of the internet and sleeper agents. Like they're not actually touching people. They're just fully psychologically brainwashing people, specifically through media and through your feed and through everything involved on the internet. Like it's a total hands-off approach now.
Well, like what we saw with Charlie Kirk is a huge psyop. A huge, like he was framed and groomed from the first days 10 plus years ago, the wife, all of that, the media presence, the connections, the Ben Shapiro thing, all of that shit was connected. It's not an organic phenomenon to get like any kind of like traction. What you're saying about the algorithm flagging people as sleeper agents, I think it's like if you're useful, it starts encouraging you. And I know that sounds weird because you're like, how can the machine
that's a better way to explain what I was trying to say.
But it also encouraged you into talking about things that like the culture, the zeitgeist is like, so if you like look at it from different heights, right? The 30,000 foot view compared to like the street level view. The trends that are going and getting attention in conspiracy YouTube, conspiracy media, podcasting, etc., that's carefully curtailed. That's carefully manicured. And the points being made don't make any progress over the last 20 years. People were talking about the Nephilim and people were talking about interdimensional beings, and et cetera. People were talking about the UFOs, government connections. People have been talking about this in its kind of complete way forever. You know, before the internet and when the internet's first days. But the idea of like who's allowed to become super successful, how like much can you believe in this? How much can it be like represented as a real like a real reality in life? How much can it be discussed with a sense of disconnect or like divorce from reality? That is deeply in the hands of these big tech like powers, the AI, the algorithm, the Silicon Valley base of that, fucking power central of the internet. That is what I feel you can clearly see being manipulated. You can clearly see that being played with because, like, for example, with Nephilim, with giants, that came out of nowhere. No one talked about giants in the 90s. No one cared about giants in the early 2000s. That came out specifically around 2012. And that started gaining so much artificial momentum that now every single paranormal or conspiracy channel I've ever seen come out in the last, 5-10 years has to talk about giants, has to talk about Nephilim, has to talk about some kind of reality of these people, Tartaria, etc., or even just the fact that giants are real. It's not knocking this theory at all. It's just that this, as you can tell, it's not an organic thing. People didn't just wake up one day and think giants are real, even if there's evidence for them and everything. That is something that's acceptable to talk about, that's allowed to be talked about. And that's something that you start seeing, more people kind of being pushed, just chaperoned and manipulated and kind of and kind of just like shoved in this direction. And it's got its gatekeepers. It's got its power of players. It's fundamental experts, etc. But it's not the only one either. There are clear zeitgeists that need to be sacrificed to, that need to be worshipped in this world. I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying that's what they want, and that's what they get, and that's what YouTube is. It's like a temple where the altar is the video, and the sacrifice is like the actual, like the actual video. The watching it, that like the adoration between the viewer and the people, and that through the YouTube, through these video services, through Spotify, through all these podcast services, Amazon podcasts, that is the temple that they're showing the mysteries, that they're showing these occult initiation informations towards the masses and stuff like that. And so, it's gate kept by the powers to be. But it's the priests are the people that have accepted this, they accepted this, and they're not freer than anyone else. They're just serving that master in this different capacity.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I've been wanting to talk about this for a couple episodes now, but this whole idea about the like dance around narrative, that's probably a really good way to explain it. That you'll see people that'll do like these Netflix documentaries, or that'll do these YouTube channels and stuff, and they'll be onto something, but they won't quite say it. And you don't know if it's a matter of them trying to dance around it because they're controlled, or if it's a matter of they're trying to push people into it, but they can't say it because they're trying to be tricky with the algorithms, for example. One of the main ones I want to bring up that made me think about this, are you familiar with the program, Cons, Cults, and Kidnappings? It was a Netflix documentary talking about Ivy Ridge.
No, wait, Ivy Ridge.
It's called
Is
The
that
Program.
The one from Hawaii?
No, the program.
The one from Hawaii?
Is it's a documentary talking about those schools where people would send their kids to them, and they would basically get like beat into like submission and stuff, and then it goes into like a bunch of like the MK. Well, it doesn't necessarily like say the MK Ultra type stuff, but as I'm watching this program, they start talking about all these like different like psychological operations they're basically doing to these kids to try to break them down. And as I'm watching this, it starts kind of seeming a lot like the ancient Babylon, like mind splitting, and a lot of this like satanic ritual abuse type stuff that I've been diving into for the show forever. And then as it continues on, I'm like, it starts talking about Utah, and I'm like, weird. I bet you it has something to do with Mormons. And then they talk about the group, and the group's called WASP, WWASP, which, for anybody that's familiar with the Mormons, they do a lot of this occult B-type symbology to hide amongst everything. And then as it goes farther on into the documentary, it starts talking about the guy that runs all these programs. They're a Mormon family, and it's like dancing around the fact that there's this huge faction that of the conspiracy community, which I'm sure yourself are fully aware of this, the whole like Mormon MK Ultra mind control aspect and how they play into all this type of stuff. And as I'm watching this documentary, it's like paralleling all of my MK Ultra mind control research, going into like the Freemason stuff, going into all of this stuff, but they're not saying that. They're like dancing around it. They mention the fact that they're a Mormon once. It's like, again, are you controlling the narrative because you're trying to push everything off? You're trying to make it so people have a new figurehead to be mad at, or are you purposely dancing around it so that people will read between the lines? But considering that a lot of this stuff is Netflix and everything, I'm going to go into consideration that they're purposely trying to control the narrative so that it's brought up, but it's not dwelled upon, so that you end up looking the other direction.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing with that kind of stuff. There are people who know the truth, and I don't mean this in the way that people know that the moon landing was fake and stuff. People who know actual truth about people and about society. It's an open secret. And by that, I mean, like, it's an open secret. Like, okay, Stanley Kubrick, for example. Stanley Kubrick, what are your opinions of Stanley Kubrick relatively positive?
Fascination-wise, I say yes. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of, that's a hard one. It's like a sitting on the fence thing, because clearly the guy knew information. So it's like, was he trying to give people information, or was he just part of the group controlling the narrative? That's why I say it's like fascination, but the guy was aware of things. It's just, I don't know which way to play it, you know?
All right, here, I'll reframe this. This is a pretty good example. I'll just reframe this. I'm not trying to set you up. I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. So just, okay, so you know about, I know, Stanley Kubrick, moon landing, fake and all stuff, but would you be like, hey, after everything I've seen of Stanley Kubrick, just on the media, just in movies, movie channels, things like that, people who are talking about how good movies are and who this guy really is, maybe like the Shining Code or whatever. Would you think that Stanley Kubrick didn't have the skeletons in his closet, besides the fact that he helped? Maybe he made Eyes Wide Shut because he was telling the truth, etc. And he knew the secrets, but he was on our side. He was a good guy. That's typically the view of Stanley Kubrick, right? The quote unquote enlightened view of Stanley Kubrick.
But this is the hard part because I go into the conspiracy stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
And I'm going to hit you with a second punch, or I got something good. Well, so the point of Stanley Kubrick is that he lived in England. He didn't live in America. He ran away from America. And I follow Instagram movie page. This is a movie thing. Stanley Kubrick's an artist. He's an artiste. Difficult to work with. The guy was busted in his house containing the largest child pornography stash in California history at that time. In England, during the filming of A Clockwork Orange, it is known on record that he contacted modeling agencies and asked for young models as young as possible to pose nude for him personally, as he took series of films and photographs. And now we all know Stanley Kubrick takes thousands of photos and is very meticulous and obsessive about detail, etc. That he had these hundreds of nude models engaging in this nudity, etc., and then saved all the photographs and videos into a personal vault in England, back to his old tricks. Now, we know that this is an open secret amongst people who just do a little bit of autobiographical work. All people, like musicians, from politicians, philosophers, intellectuals, writers, directors, every single person has skeletons in their closet. Like I said, the human heart is the origin and birthplace of all evil. And man's hands have committed all the sin that's been committed on earth. So it's not like Jesus Christ said, call no man good, and not even Jesus Christ. And that's the thing, the idea is that mankind by itself is corrupted. When you actually break down this case, like how much are they saying and are allowed to say? How much is supposed to be connecting the dots? The whole world is just connect the dots. That's our society. If 1,000 years from now, when America disappears and falls into the fucking ocean like Atlantis or whatever, and archaeologists are finding out American media and literature, they'll say these people did not tell the truth to themselves. They had a version of the truth, but they did not tell the whole truth. They knew the truth in their hearts, but they could not speak it out loud, for they were afraid. It's as simple as that. And that's how they're going to view it. And they're going to ask, why were we so afraid? Simply to see ourselves in the mirror and tell the truth. And it's because of that. Fundamentally, that they fundamentally have us wearing chains that we forge ourselves. We fear the truth and that we must obey. We must always say Stanley Kubrick was a good director and never a massive asshole who abused the people who were entrusted to work with him.
Dude, look at any 80s rock star that everybody's obsessed with and talks about how good of a person they were, but every single 80s rock star had a song about banging an underage girl.
100%. We're waking up now. We're waking up now, and we're being able to kind of see reality for what it was. And that's the thing. Like the reason, but you can look at even further. Like the reason why he was allowed to get away with that, and he didn't go to jail for that, even though everyone fucking knew. Everyone who worked with Stanley Kubrick knew that he was abusing his own daughters. He was abusing every woman on set. And yes, sexually abusing, mentally abusing, emotionally abusing. He filmed Lolita, which was a pedophile film, for example, and had that girl assign a contract to be his personal valet or basically been her supervision. We don't even question that. What we want to question is whether or not he worked on the moon landing and he knew about these facts, because that's the thing. They got us working on this idea that what could be and not really what was, and definitely we'll never know for sure what was. But when you break it down, he was allowed to get away with that, like so many people were allowed to get away with that, because they keep those secrets. They keep other people's secrets, and thus it's a mutually assured secrecy pact amongst the elite.
That's just proof that they're in the group from the first place, is the fact that they have the blackmail as part of it, so now they become the controlled narrative. I mean, simply anybody that has a skeleton in their closet that's trying to expose the truth, you have to consider the fact that that is their role within the group, is to do what they're doing. Because again, would they have these particular skeletons in their closet if they weren't part of the group? Particularly the whole child abuse aspect. That seems to be one of the calling cards that even if you don't want to be part of the group, they'll get you into one of those acts so that you are now part of the group. So if you are more than willing to do that stuff of your own fruition, I feel like you're instantly would totally be okay with being part of the group.
Basically, because Americans and the Westerners, the British that we originated from, and Europeans in whole, have so much social taboo, and it's so bizarrely contradictory. Because in society at large, people's personal images are based on virtues. This is undeniable. America had prohibition in the 1930s or 1920s. We have you can't be the president and openly cheat on your wife, Bill Clinton style, right? We have a virtue-built temple and cult of personality, and America is the least virtuous of all peoples. The least virtuous and least wanting to be virtuous. We don't have an innate respect for those who are too good. We don't. Americans like to be just a little bit evil, like enough to get by, enough to be like, yeah, don't fuck with me. I'm also a little bit, I also do a lot of bad, crazy, but cool things. I might just steal a car, or something. Fast and Furious. That's those movies are. The culture is that we want to be rebels. We want to be, we want to be badasses and stuff like that, but we don't want to stand up to the actual injustices and powers even within our own hearts and stuff.
I think that's what we started off as, but now we're not that anymore, but we still have the spirit of that. Because, going back to it, we fucking started a revolution off of a 3% sales tax on tea. And I was talking about this a couple days ago. Now they just moved they shifted the tax, the state tax for cannabis in Michigan now, where you're paying 40% sales tax on weed now. And it's like nobody's starting a revolution. But again, everybody wants to have that mentality of, oh, I'm the crazy American. I'm the tough one. I'm the outlaw. And it's we were bred on that, but we don't contain that anymore because, again, we're getting taxed out the ass, but we started a revolution off of 3%. We aren't the same people anymore.
Oh, and even then, don't get me started with that. Alternate history. Oh man. So we could do a whole series on alternate histories and what really happened. And it's an open secret. Any researchers will tell you what exactly happened, because it's written down and it's context clues, and it didn't happen that long ago. People were alive and talked about it afterwards, extensively, what happened, and that we've all been fed a lie. We've all been fed a tremendous amount of bullshit about American history and about world history. And it's the American Revolution, for example. The American Revolution, the idea that colonized George Washington and being a hero, and what this was all about, even, and the entitlements of it, how it was viewed culturally. When you actually look at the figures and see it for yourself, it is so bizarre. We act like we won independence from Britain and kicked them off North America, when all Britain did was retreat back to Canada and Jamaica. So it's like, okay, they left the 13 colonies. Florida wasn't a part of it at the time. So it was just a part of America here. And then all of Canada, all the way to the Pacific Ocean is fucking British. And then all of the Caribbean is basically British. And then all of the Atlantic Ocean is so British. And America's we want our independence. And then not even 30 years later, in 1812, the British come back and burn down the White House. It is all enough of that bullshit. And since then, America became a protectorate, a colony, a company of Britain again. And it's called the United States Company. America itself as a country, an independent country, only lasted 30 years. And if you look at, say, the history of the U.S. Constitution, for example, it's not a solid document that was written all at once. It's a charter, and it's a company charter. It's a business charter. And the idea is that all of England's colonies are misunderstood. They didn't set up colonies in the name of the, like, they did it in the name of the crown, but it wasn't like, they said it in companies. Companies, and that word company is exactly what it's a business. The Canadian company, the Hudson Bay Company, Africa Company, the Congo Company, the British India Company, and stuff. And they were companies, they were businesses meant to raise profits and create citizenries that would be employees with contractual debts and obligations to serving the economy of the crown. And only after World War II did that ever stop? Did it ever really diminish? And it's still not, because Britain still owns Canada. The Queen of England is on Canada's money.
Still Australia
and
too.
Michigan, and Australia and Singapore and Hong Kong for a while, and then these places just got their independence in the 90s. Jamaica only got their independence in the 60s and stuff like that. So the idea of the American Revolution, and it's and the idea we fought and beat Britain, it's okay. It's like saying Afghanistan defeated America. The idea of we left Afghanistan, but it's not like they came to DC and it's not like they actually shaped or shook anything. It was a small place, and we're going back, and it's just going to be 30 years before another country rolls in. Just the idea behind it, America itself was and that's the thing. History is a fascinating thing, because knowing the truth is akin to being insane. To know the true history of the world is akin to being insane. All World War II was bullshit. All World War I was bullshit. All the Cold War was complete lies. All of it has just been to create the greatest lie on earth, that the countries are competing against each other than working towards a single world government, which is the case. They're working towards a one world government. They have been for a number of centuries.
Say America was just intended to be the power arm. I mean, I'm pretty convinced at this point that we were intended to be the ones that kind of take the view off of England, because nobody's really talking about anything that England's doing. We're the ones that are the assholes that step in, that blow stuff up, that do this, that poke our noses into business that isn't ours. We're just intended to be the enforcers, we're still part of the same arm. And we're just the enforcer for them.
And even then, what I think happened, and I think America is going to become New England. America is the second British Empire, basically, and it's going to follow the trace of the British in every single way in the next 21st century, in the next 100 years. And this is not something I'm in control of, so don't blame me for the jingoists and stuff.
No, Adam Curry on No Agenda has been talking about this for a while. He's been calling it the North Sea Nexus. So, I mean, this is something that people are starting to actually get onto and actually understand that England still controls everything.
Yeah. It's psychohistory too. It's a type of cultural relativism. It's sociology, where it says the empires of Rome, etc., never really ended. They just relocated to England and the east of Spain and Portugal and stuff. And the British Empire and the Spanish Empire, which were the next biggest world empires after Rome fell, after rising from the Dark Ages, are Roman. They're Roman. They have no cultural
origin. Did Rome ever
origin.
really truly fall, or did it just become the Vatican? Because as far as I'm concerned, Rome just became the Vatican because they all speak Latin.
It also became the British crown. It also became the British crown, and then became the Habsburgs and all the German Holy Roman. So the idea of it has a seamless continuity of empire, and the continuity of empire has many names. Like I said, the snake has many heads, but over time it has many names, and it has many forms, and it has many different angles based on technology and the economies of the world. But it has one thing in common: the worship of the sun, the worship of the phoenix, the awareness of a global reset, and the agendas to maintain the illusion of worldly supremacy in a world that is unknowable, unmasterable, and to a people who are divine, higher spirit beings. What this means that every empire has one solid mission: to keep the people down and to keep the rulers up. And that's it. And it's just it. And it's the British had their aristocracy. The Spanish had their aristocracy, their monarchies. The Americans have in their forms their monarchies. Trump is I hate to I hate to ever talk about modern politics, right? To ever sully myself by talking about this. But like FDR was a monarch. He ruled for 16 years. The president is a new word for king. It's a synonym for king. And it doesn't matter what you call people, pope or king or emperor or ruler or Vici or, whatever, dragon lord or whatever. They're supreme cults of personality. They all run through a cult symbolism and initiation and have their viziers and their priests and their, supporters through the masses, etc. And what we're seeing now is no different than Pharaoh Ramses or King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon or King Richard the Lionhearted of England or, anyone who really does it. It's the same fucking thing. It's the same as the American Revolution. The idea that America is different in any sense, economically, politically, spiritually. It's the biggest lie ever told. It's second to the Holocaust in terms of the biggest lie ever told. It's the myth of American, and exceptionalism. I think that's the word, American exceptionalism. And in a lot of cases, America is a completely manufactured theater of the monopoly of violence. And all the patriots and all the war hawks and all the people who talk on social media, et cetera, about how America, et cetera, they don't get that it's all fake. 100%. All the wars are fake. 100% all the wars are fake. Vietnam was fake. Iraq was fake. The global war on terror was fake. They're all proxy operations. The military is operating in these areas. They're typically doing things like destroying history, destroying historical oddities, UPARTs, which are called objects. I don't know what UPARTs are, like objects and artifacts out of time or whatever the fuck. Like they're not they're hard to explain away.
Not supposed to exist, like the Baghdad battery, that one wrench that was found in the cave, all the really like weird, unexplainable stuff. That nuclear reactor that was found inside that cave that they supposedly just like knocked down any passage to get into that cave because they couldn't explain why it was a self-containing nuclear reactor. Like,
Exactly. Like you look at the fire bombings of the 20th century. Why was the 20th century both the invention, like the start of mass bombings of cities in old world nations like Germany, Europe, Japan, China, etc., and it was this mass razing of infrastructure and civilian collateral damage. And they tried to justify it with strategy and technology of the times. We don't do that now. And you know how reprehensible it would be if America fucking firebombed a city into rubble? We did that shit all the time in World War II. We did it for 4 fucking years, just unrepentant, just firebomb the fuck out of Tokyo. And it's like, that's an archaeological gold mine. Like that Tokyo before it was burned had existed unchanged for 800 years. And we burned it to the fucking ground. That's not because it won the war or helped America at all. It's because we wanted to destroy that history. And then the lie of the war is that Japan was fighting us. Japan had Freemasons infiltrate its government under the emperor in the 1800s. It's what the movie Last Samurai fucking shows, is that they were already speaking English and trading with Westerners. They were Freemasons who did that. And they were already conspiring to kill their own god emperor. What they needed to do was start a world war that would enforce this like outside aggression to destroy the machine of Japan. And these people who wanted to do it were the leaders of the Japanese military. They allowed America to fuck them up that bad. This is 100% verifiable. This is why Emperor Hirohito wore a Mickey Mouse watch. because they didn't care about the Japanese people. Like I said, that keeps the people in power on top and the people below. They were getting too strong. They had too strong of an identity. They had too strong of a culture. They had too strong of minds and hearts. The only excuse was to kill them all. And the only way to do that was with the atomic weapons. And you can say atomic weapons aren't real, and I don't believe that they're real. I believe it was firebombing and a lot of propaganda, etc. Another big lie, the atomic bomb.
The whole dirty bomb concept that the atomic bomb was never actually created and it was actually just like an overpowered napalm bomb.
It wasn't even that. It was just a lot of bullshit, like a lot of lies. Theater. They created the lie. The lie is so big it can't be denied. And like you saw, like the nuclear bomb explosions, right? Only recently declassified. And there's a lot of work, say like by Eric Dubé, for example, who goes through like the history of it. They were only recently declassified. All the 1940s and 50s atomic explosions, etc. The ones they showed before those days were the idealized, perfect fucking mushroom cloud. So they would test hundreds, if not thousands, of these devices, these big bombs, and only capture the ones that looked perfect. And they only show those mushroom clouds in terms of like, this is what it's ideally supposed to look like.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave.
I'm not denying that we have hydrogen bombs. I'm not denying we have neutron bombs. I'm not denying we have weapons of mass destruction that are unparalleled in terms of fission and fusion, salt, cobalt, etc. The atomic bomb in 1944, 1945 was absolute bullshit. Like the moon landing. I'm not denying that we have spaceships and space planes that can fly us straight from fucking here to Mars in like less than a couple of hours. What I am denying, though, is that the Apollo moon landing ever fucking happened. You know, it's like that piece of shit with tinfoil wrapped around it didn't fucking leave the studio lot in Hollywood it was parked in. The moon buggy is $1 billion fiasco. If you look at moon buggies, I'm saying like the stuff, these rabbit holes you go down to. This is what I'm talking about America. It's that everything that's like an open secret, if you just look at it, it's not even top secret, you just research it. We spent billions of dollars to try to build moon buggies, and they're just fucking dune buggies with open carriages and shit like that.
Going into the whole
concept of it,
the A-bomb thing that you were just talking about. One thing that I've been kind of thinking about relatively recently with this, and I don't know about how this breaks down on atomic level. So if somebody knows how to break this down a little bit better and can explain it, absolutely be my guest. But we have the atomic bomb, which is essentially supposed to be splitting an atom, and it creates this giant explosion. But then we have stuff like the hydrogen particle collider where we're bashing particles together and essentially, I'm sure, splitting atoms in the process of that, but we're not creating those same types of explosions. Like, I feel like those would be somewhat comparable, correct? Or am I just looking at this from the wrong point scientifically? Like, theoretically, that machine shouldn't be able to contain those explosions.
The fact that there have never been atomic bombing since World War II. That's clear case against them. And it's like, well, because it's been controlled. Has it? There were two superpowers that were aiming at nuclear weapons. Not one of them used them in the proxy war. We didn't use a nuclear weapon in Vietnam. We did not use it in the global war on terror. And like I said, I am not saying that they don't exist now in a tactical way. But what we do is we present technological advances, for example, like landing on the moon, like the atomic bomb, like World War II's, just simple mobilization of America. The mobilization alone, biggest lie ever told, that all of a sudden, overnight after Pearl Harbor, America's economy woke up a sleeping giant, and 20% of America who was unemployed went straight into the weapons manufacturing industries, and like women are walking around with their lunch boxes. We can do it, you know, Rosie the Riveter, and we're just making all this fucking weapons and building boats, just building ships and fucking full battleships in like matters of weeks and stuff like that to replenish our losses. And then we still have to ration food. We still have to like We couldn't buy gasoline, like in the civilians couldn't buy gasoline for their cars. They had to ration food. And yet they're building and doing all this like intentional construction to help. And it raises America from the Great Depression. We saved our economy and became the greatest economic superpower in the world. And this is the lie, like, that we couldn't just do that before with peaceful shit. We couldn't just make like everyone a car. We couldn't make just like, I don't know, like the way John Deere tractors. We couldn't just like make people refrigerators and give them out for free. Like we couldn't do things that were good for mankind. It took Pearl Harbor, and then the government was like, okay, guys, no more Great Depression. Everybody get to fucking work. And okay, everyone's got to hire people. Everyone, the lie behind it is that this is like good and this is organic. And this was like America waking up and getting its shit together. But instead of just the admittance that our economy is completely gatekept, that we're intentionally kept poor, that the people are intentionally deprived of resources, while America wants for nothing. And if America wanted to, could literally flip a switch and become this economic juggernaut that just like destabilizes the world through production and military might, but we'll never do it again. Same thing with the Apollo moon landing. That if we wanted to, America can get together and build a fucking rocket ship.
Yeah, we're going to go to Mars, but we can't make it back to the moon.
Oh yeah, we will never go. We'll never go back again. We'll never do it again. There's no ever, and don't even ask us to even like do the old one, like get the old one out of mothballs and like fucking launch it back up there.
We're focused on Mars now. Why would we even try to touch the moon? We're done with that. We're going straight to Mars. Why do the easy one just to prove the fact that we were there? You know, we're not even going to try to. Yeah. We're not even going to fall into that. We don't need to prove nothing to nobody. We're going straight to Mars.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of shit too. Like America got into a lot of military engagements that they don't talk about. Because they were disasters, and they ruined the myth of American invincibility or power. Like, for example, do you know that America sent hundreds of thousands of men to Russia to fight against the communists in 1917 and 1919? And they fought for the White Russians, the Tsarists, through Mongolia alongside the Japanese. They were allies with the Imperial Japanese who were fighting for the Tsarist Russians against the Bolshevik Revolution. And they got their asses fucking annihilated. They were destroyed to a man or taken prisoner and never returned to America. We don't talk about that. I have never read that in a history book. I had to learn that through fucking my own research. There's shit like Americans got into military campaigns that just fucking never came back from. That just like were absolutely disastrous. And the idea of like Vietnam itself, they don't tell you the truth in movies. They don't tell you the truth in propaganda or in the news. It like they always show you Vietnamese people holding AK-47s because they were funded by the Russians or Chinese, right? They don't tell you the truth is that the Vietnamese were holding American weapons because they were stealing them from the South Vietnamese, and that most North Vietnamese people held M16s. Or, you know, when they were fighting Americans. They don't tell you that the actual numbers for Vietnamese casualties were much lower, and the actual numbers for American casualties were much higher. They would blame things like suicide or internal killing of officers called fragging for the deaths of officers, etc., when they were North Vietnamese assassinations and stuff. And so like the numbers go way higher. So almost 100,000 casualties, you know, that people like, you know, Americans died during war. It's ridiculous because of propaganda. Same thing with Iraq or the GWAT thing. It's like they don't tell you this because they want to control the image and create the mythology of the American experience. And there is a inner and universal truth that I think when people see it, it's unmistakable. It's poignant. It shocks them to the reality that America is not God. America is not God, but America pretends it's God. America is a fake God. America is a false God. And all the definitions of idolatry and definitions of false gods. It is just like when you were younger, and I'm assuming you're like a Christian or you have some kind of experience with Christian education, and you read about thou shalt not have any gods than before me, and then you read about the emperors that claim themselves to be God, like Nebuchadnezzar, who said, I am God, worship my statue, and you're like, no, that guy's a bad guy. No, like you're not real God, you're not real Jesus, you're like the devil in disguise, like you're a bad person because you're saying that you're holy and you have power over the human soul and destiny, etc. And you don't. You're just one of us. You're just a thing, like a concept, like anything, a thing of the world. You're not special. You're just like a thing, like we all are. We're equal in our thingness. That's America. That's the American experience, American history, and I think the generation that we're living in now, 21st century, is going to accept this and is going to erase all of the old education. Like I know I'm doing it internally. I'm erasing all of my education, and I went to college. I was very much into like learning what we had to learn, learning the history of the world the way it was taught, learning everything the way it was, fed to me. But I think right now, I'm at the point where I'm using that information to question everything.
That's what I've been saying for a while. It's like use it as the base to be able to know what what part differentiates from the narrative. You know what I mean? Like that's my whole thing that I've always told even like my daughter and everything about education in general. Even beyond like conspiracies and everything, like what they teach you in school is basically like a very basic base so that you can actually figure out what parts of the narrative are messed up. So it's like you still have to pay attention to the narrative to know what they're trying to spew at other people. But that's at least how you know your groundwork on how to break somebody out of that, is because if you don't know the base groundwork, then how can you throw those little specks of doubt in their mind to say, all right, well, here's the thing that actually makes sense, but you're still going to believe this?
Well, like you look at things like now, like QAnon and stuff like that, or you look at things now like, the situation with the world, like Charlie Kirk. Like I didn't really want to talk about it, but like, look at this thing that happened, right? And like, I don't know what you believe or what you all come to opinions about it and stuff like that. But you look at the wife. You look at his wife. That's very suspicious behavior, isn't it? I don't think that's fooling anybody. I don't think no matter how much they push that, I think it's hurting the agenda. And I think this is like all part of it. People instinctively are starting to see how creepy, how fake, just how fucking forced everything is. No amount of celebrities, no amount of fireworks, no amount of hugging the president and everyone like pretending that it's like this thing is gonna work. And I know the masses, it still works on millions of people, etc. But I think it's like at a time now where, if not millions more, see the truth. I think now I don't think anyone's gonna buy the bullshit anymore. I think everyone's very, very, like I said, the word woke started with the best of intentions and got so fucking villainized.
Oh, that got hijacked. Because woke used to be like, I'm woke. I like no conspiracies. And then that flipped like real quick. That was like almost overnight. You can't even use that one.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the idea of like, well, people are internal. Like the real definition of what the word woke is now. People are like boondocks woke. People are like, liberating themselves, freeing themselves from mental slavery. People are starting to question agendas, just like boondocks. But just like for Black culture, people are starting to accept like that kind of honesty. Like you watch like Boondocks. You know what I'm talking about, Boondocks, right?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I mean, most people, you'd be surprised. Most people don't know. It came out in 2005. It came out in 2005, and then they brought it back. Like, I think as late as 2013, 2016, they did some new episodes, but like it's still over 10 years old.
Dude, the funniest part about that show was the fact that everybody just saw it as like a ghetto comedy. But the whole intention of the writer was to basically show how ridiculous the culture had become. So it's a really messed up thing, though. What he wrote it for, to show against, was exactly what people fell into. Yeah. Because it's like everybody loved how ghetto the show was, but that was never what he was trying to show with the show. Like he was trying to show how ridiculous it is. Well, that's what I'm saying. The ridiculousness of it, right? Like, so like you're intelligent enough to know that, like that from that level. When you watch Boondocks, you're like, I get it. He's calling them out for their bullshit.
He's one of them. He's like, hey, what the fuck are we doing? Everyone look around. This is fucking stupid. We all have an agenda. Like and their agenda is very simple: reparations, freedom. The idea, remember, like the guy being like, Dewey being like, 9/11 was caused by the government, and he drops the mic, etc. Like the idea, like that being woke. That was woke. Wow, you're woke. You know, you got like the dreads on, and like, yeah, you're like, we're woke. Well, you're like, you got to tell truth to power. You're not asleep anymore, going through the motions. That was 9/11 woke. I think America now is at that ideal point of like, we are all fighting for the truth, fighting for our soul, fighting for some kind of goodness. We may all just be at that point now where we're like, waking up. It's not like we're woke, because woke is kind of like that. It was hijacked, etc. But I think now the majority of people, you go to people now, they're awake. They're able to see that they've been living a lie, that people have been lying to them in high places, etc. That they don't even trust the YouTubers that are pushed in front of them. I went to a wedding the other day, and I had a person question whether or not a certain YouTuber was like on the level or not, like, legit. And I was like, no, that person. It's just weird, because I was like, to hear a question by somebody being like, hey, do you think this person's like, or is are fucking with us type thing? And I was all like, I think that's a good place to be. I have a lot of confidence. I have a lot of optimism. I think people are going to go into the 2020s, into the 2030s, and kind of, cast off these shackles a little bit and start being able to kind of assert themselves a lot more. Especially, like you said, the new generation is waking up. As new generation is raised in places where this isn't even like taboo. This isn't even weird. Like, I was raised in the 90s, where it was like, if you listen to like the X-Files, if you like that kind of stuff, you were a different kind of nerd, and you weren't really like that wasn't the place. Like, the place wasn't like in mainstream society for that discussion. That was late night television type shit. Like, you had to wait till after midnight to talk about these things. Like, just at a decency for everyone else. Like, after midnight, then you can talk about UFOs and fucking chupacabras and stuff like that. But like, now I think that the majority of people are really, really, really digging it. Like, everyday people, like not even people like you would think, like moms. Like, I
had my stepmom come up to me like a couple months ago and go, the news lies, right? I'm like, yep.
Exactly, yeah. I was at the Alamo the other day in October, and we were walking just past this group of people, and I overheard a mother talking to her little child, like a 3 or 4 year old daughter, and she was talking about Adolf Hitler, and how she was putting it though in a way that was like, some people say, he didn't do good things with his power, but it is kind of like that. There's a but there, and I was all like this is a brave new world we're walking into, and it's because of that. They've agitated, exploited the trust of people so much that people are starting to question everything. And it's like you said, I don't necessarily like Adolf Hitler or anything like that, but I think it's funny that you overheard a woman talking to her daughter positively about Adolf Hitler at the Alamo in 2025. Like, that's the world we really do live in, where people are like willing to question everything. They're like willing to be like, I'm not accepting the mainstream narrative.
You just got to hope that splits in the positive way, because that split seems to go two ways. It's either one, what we're talking about way earlier in the show, to bring it back around, that you get to a point where you absolutely trust no one, and that's part of the psyop, or you get to the point where you see straight even past that bullshit, and you actually start to connect with the people around you again and realize that not everybody's your enemy. But I almost kind of feel like, as crazy as it sounds, like letting people become more aware might also be part of the plan. Because at a certain point, I almost kind of think they had the intention of, the people that are awake are going to be awake. The people that aren't aren't. And at a certain point, they're going to want to separate the two. The ones that are awake, you guys can run off and go do your own thing. The people that want to sit down and be sheep, yeah, we'll keep them over here. No problem at all. Sit down and go back to sleep, everybody.
I think that's actually world history. I think that's always been the case. I don't think there's anything different between our time and any moment. there's only one eternal moment. There's only one eternal human heart. There's only one eternal human heart, and two eyes, one mind, then two ears, one mouth type thing. Like, it's all the same. It's like in the year 2000 BC, or the year 2000 AD, it's the same. There's only one eternal moment. I think Philip K. Dick talked about that, the phenomenology of being like, when you actually read the Bible or study any kind of religious teachings, like anything like that, you start seeing that time is an illusion. Human nature is like, the people during the Jesus day were exactly like us. They were exactly like us. They wanted to know what the truth was. They were being lied to by their government. They had cults and temples and fake gods, etc. That they had. People were worshiping. People were doing crazy shit in their name, etc. And everyone just wanted to know the truth. And that's, we had a man named Jesus Christ come and liberate us and give us salvation, etc. And then, same thing with Buddha. During Buddha's day, people wanted to know the truth. People were unhappy, people were questioning, etc. And people come up and times change. And I don't think it's the end of time. It's not the end of days. It's just this, every day is a brand new day. In that sense, every year is a brand new year. Every person's a brand new person. It's like, so what is the alchemy behind all of it? What is the ultimate purpose behind all of it? I think it's individual illumination. I think it's individual enlightenment. I think everyone lives their life, and the mark of a man's life is how close they came to the truth, internally, externally, and that's it. It's like how close did you come to the truth? Like we're bocce balls, or like we're curling stones. It's just, there's a mark, and it's like your life is that trajectory, and it's how close. Like we're arrows fired to the bullseye. How close did you hit the truth? There's only one truth. There's only that one bullseye. And the more the arrows are going towards it. I think whoever's firing the arrows is getting more accurate. I think it's zeroing in.
And at that point, we can all move up to the next level and break away into the fourth dimension or something, maybe that's like the end goal for all of this stuff, is it talks about this essentially getting to a point of living the perfect life. And then once everybody's able to live the perfect life, something happens, like maybe we elevate to another dimension, like something, man. Like there is something to this, because this is something that, again, you see amongst all philosophy all throughout time. Like, it's just something that it's hard to put a thumb on, because I feel like it's one of those concepts that just might be, we infer that there's something there, but it's hard for humans to fathom what exactly it is, because it might be something beyond human comprehension. But beyond that, we do still have this gut feeling that we know that there's this thing that we're supposed to be going after. Inquiries About Reality will return after this quick commercial break. And we are back, so let's hop right in.
Well, like with 4D, you had talked about your interest in 4D beings, and when looking back at my experiences with 4D beings, Breakaway Civilization, SSP, Memories, the Solar Warden, living with the Venusians. Venusians biologically are 4D beings. This is a difficult concept for people who have never experienced time travelers to understand. In fact, time travel is very poorly understood and poorly represented in media, etc. Humans have a very doomer idea of time travel, because we're time travel is alien to us. It's foreign to us. We're not 4D beings. 4D beings who can travel and exist in multiple levels of time are in the dimension I know about 4D beings. Like, they don't view people as current day. Like, when you meet a person, I'm meeting you, this is you January 5th, 2026. If I meet you again in another year, that's going to be you in 2027. They don't see that. Whenever they look at you, they see all of you from your birth to your death. And they know that they're only interacting with this one particular moment of you, this version of you, but that they can choose to interact or go, whereas we can only kind of meet in this intersection of the now. They can choose to go into the past, they can choose to go into the future. And it's the idea that they don't have the will to, which prevents them from doing it, or that they just don't see that, like, that's going to change anything, a fatalism. And it's like a Doctor Who, it's like a Dr. Manhattan type reality towards them. Is that what you were trying to talk about when you talked about 4D, your interest in 4D beings or the 4D? Because that is true to a lot of these ultra-terrestrials, like extraterrestrials that we know as like Venusians, Pleiadians, Nordics, tall whites. They're 4D by nature. Their spaceships are more like time machines. In that sense, they are one dimension, like I said, multiple dimensions above us. They go to all the way to 11D. They go to all the way to these different abilities in 11D. And I can send you a link that was like an OG YouTube video where it explained the 11 dimensions.
Yeah, I would actually love to see that. Because this is like,
have to do with time.
This is basically the type of stuff that I've been diving into a lot lately, because it seems like a lot of my research is kind of coming back to this concept. Like, even diving into the Bible, man, I've mentioned this on a few shows, but even breaking down like the Holy Trinity, it just sounds like you're trying to describe a 4 or 5 dimensional being in the best way that you can from a 3-dimensional perspective. And it seems like just almost everything, man, it kind of gets into this concept, like the paranormal, this whole idea of like the reptilians, like taking our luge, our energy, like almost any conspiracy goes back into this like 4D concept for me and interacting with beings from a higher dimension. Like even religion, dude, you start breaking all that down, all that stuff. I mean, simply the Bible, just off of 2 things, the Holy Trinity and, you know, how Daniel describes how the angels described, you know, with all the different,
Ezekiel.
Yeah, Ezekiel. Yeah, with all the different like rotating eyes and wings and everything like that. It just sounds like like multi-dimensional beings, and we're trying to perceive them and understand them from a 3-dimensional perspective.
Yeah, funnily enough, Cthulhu is also a product of this kind of discussion, which in Lovecraft's own description of Cthulhu, it's not
almost any of his monsters. They're like almost in you almost can't create them on paper. That's why there's no good H.P. Lovecraft movies. Like, his creatures exist in description barely,
you get it.
But again, they're
you get it.
Higher dimensional beings.
They're bubbling amorphous things that are constantly swirling and shifting and defying any static representation, whereas mankind is statically represented. We can make a statue of a man, and you know it's that man because men are like statues. They're 3D represented in this kind of form and time. You cannot physically represent accurately a 4D creature unless it presents itself to you in an image of your understanding. And just like how the angels are described as having 4 faces, and the 4 faces are one of a man, one of an eagle, one of an ox, and one of a lion or whatever, and the faces are like shifting, like I said, like the wheels like are within DMT
wheels. DMT entities or Hindu entities. Like, obviously they're not all the same thing, but clearly they're coming from the same place because the way that they present themselves in our reality is described the same way.
Yeah. And here's one thing even weirder than that. So mankind, while we exist in the 3 dimensions that we are aware of and philosophically consent to, only can see the universe in 2 dimensions. We are a 3D being with very limited eyesight. Both of us wear spectacles, so we both know what we're talking about. It's a humbling thing to know that we're basically blind and we're moles.
There's nothing more embarrassing than when you set your glasses down somewhere and you literally need to have somebody help you find to be able to see. Like, that is like one of the worst feelings in the world, dude.
Don't even get me started. I as a glasses wearer can commiserate because on my first like real kiss with my college girlfriend, and back in 2005, my glass lens popped out of my glasses and I had to Velma fucking from Scooby-Doo, hands on knees on fucking grass to find the lens. Now I'm saying, like, there's no humbling more than being like, yeah, I got a kiss from my girlfriend for the first time, and I'm like 18 years old, and then help me find my lens, guys. If we all shoulder to shoulder, we can find it easier. Like, no, trust me, the glasses, we only see in 2D though. Our physical nature of our eyes sees everything upside down and on 2 dimensions, and then reflects it and refracts it back into our minds, and our minds orient everything and make sense of it. While I've been talking to you on my phone, on the video camera, for example, all of my peripheral vision is zoomed and tunneled into it, right? To create the illusion that you, in all your minutiae and details of your background and yourself, have this space and time relationship, right, with this image, and I can see myself, and I can see the computer, and then my can, and then eventually the world becomes like, created through my field of vision. That's how primitive we are when we see things. Like I said, we're not seeing like this glass in 3D. I'm seeing it in a 2D frontal image upside down that's transmitted through two eyeballs. If I lost one, the image would be radically different in perspective. Then it's put in my brain in a non-physical element, electrical data from light rays that are hitting this, refracting into my eye through the cones and rods of my pupils. And I'm making sense of this mathematically like a fucking Xbox to project into the existential reality of even sight itself. Who am I showing this to? My soul? Is my soul in a room with a movie theater in front of it and it's portraying this? But I articulate the colors and the physical, perspective of distance, etc., to create the world that I have accepted as being able to see, like the real world. These are concepts people don't even fucking fathom. The idea of optical illusions, the idea of perspective, the idea, like I said, it's a multidimensional being. Like,
just the fact that you can do one of those things where you take like it almost kind of looks like a box, but you put it in like a corner, but then it ends up creating this illusion that it looks like it's three-dimensional when it's actually inverted inward. I mean, just off of simple optical illusions like that, it shows that we have a 2D perspective through our eyes. Because if we had a 3D perspective, then that wouldn't appear to look like it's 3D.
Well, like that's what I'm saying. Like the idea of our dimensional awareness, it's very low. It's very, very low. So we're not even like mantis shrimp. Oh, my phone died. Oh no, the phone.
We are experiencing technical issues. There is no cause for alarm. Please be at ease.
Okay.
There it goes.
I'm back. Yeah, I think I'm back now. Okay, yeah. Got it on the charger. Got it prepped up against the laptop area. So yeah, we're all good to go. Died, battery just zeroed out all of a sudden. It went from it was fully charged and it just died. It just went out. But 2 hours of talking though, I think that'll do it.
Yeah, that'll probably about wrap it up. I don't know if you remember where we left off at or anything like that, but we at least gotta finish at least wrapping up the show at least.
Oh no, yeah, no problem. I was at that it'll do the battery life though. I'm hoping it's not just able to do 2 hours worth of the chat, but yeah. Whenever I talk, I always get electronic harassment, and whenever I talk to you, it always gets kind of janky around the end of the show. It's like people are wrapping up. It's like, yeah, they're trying to wrap us up kind of thing.
They're like, all right, you guys are done talking now. You guys are getting too far into the weird stuff. It's always mind control stuff, and when I've been talking about 4D stuff, dude, I start having weird tech issues. I've noticed there's always these flag things. Yeah,
because I think 4D, I think it has a lot to do with the internet. I think it has a lot to do with tech. I think it has a lot to do with the tech of the internet specifically. Because the internet feels kind of like highly, it's a magic, and it used to be way more obvious how magical the internet was. Almost they said that everything spies on you and it reads your algorithm. The internet can read your mind. The internet can look into the deepest corners of your soul that you kept away and present that to you in a way that's diabolical, in a way that you would think the internet's alive and demonic. No doubt, the internet is alive. The internet, it used to be way more obvious before the dead internet thing became a reality. The dead internet that we're in right now the last 5 years. But do you remember the internet the early 2000s?
Yeah.
You would just look at it and it would just be yeah, come it would be able to just degenerate things. People had that button on web browsers, the I feel lucky thing, yep, and just go to random websites, and it would be this sense of divination like I think it was called cyber shamanism was a thing. The idea of mystical connection and spirituality in the internet and the experience of going online was very similar to like taking mushrooms or doing acid, and people did that. Terrence McKenna was very big into both the internet and acid or mushrooms, etc., psychedelic experiences. Shamanism. I think nowadays people have become way desensitized to it and way numb to it. But I think that definitely like there's a sense of intangibility and invisibility to 4D beings. Where 4D beings can operate backwards and forwards in time or have some kind of greater organic mobility in time. Just like how 2D beings can't understand the abilities of 3D beings, but 3D beings can understand 2D beings at almost a godlike level. 4D beings, even though they're one dimension above us in terms of this like ability of traversal or control in their environment, and time is just an element in environments, would have a godlike power over mankind, would have like an angelic level of power and supremacy over mankind. There would be nothing you could do in the presence of a 4D being that it would not be fully aware of before you do it and able to go back before you did it and cancel you out. You could not hurt it. You could not harm it. You could not surprise it. You could not educate it. You could not have a secret from it. It could go back to when you were born and go to the day you died. And it would see that from just seeing you in that one moment, just like I'm seeing you right now. Just like you're seeing me right now. And how we know what clothes we're wearing, it would know exactly what and how and who and where and when you were. That's a 4D being's just casual awareness. Just like if you meet a person with sight, they can see your face and they know what you look like. And that's a huge part of human nature. That's a huge part of society, is knowing faces, knowing what you look like and character and all the way you decide to look, present yourself. It's all language. It's all body language. They can go to you as a man and it would be like talking to an angel. And on all, Judeo-Christian sense of the words, or Christian sense of the word, or Islamic sense of the word, a being of near perfection, like the archangels or anything like that. The idea of their determination inside this universe, their position to God, or it would be interpreted as that they could not deviate from their assigned stations, their perfections, their purposes, because mankind can, and mankind is not bound by awarenesses that are so solid. Then he goes even further, because like 4D goes up to like 11D in physics currently, and this is string theory. This is not like just woo new age thinking, but new age thinking has adopted the 11D. You want to like look into the rabbit hole of these dimensions, you have to go into new age circles. What has happened in popular podcasting and popular conspiracy theory and popular media, anyway, literature, popular culture, dimensions have changed definitions. Gatekeepers of culture have changed the word dimension from this purely mathematical, physical sense, this physics sense, into a pop culture representation of like a realm with different physics. And that's it. Like Rick and Morty, Stranger Things, their dimensions are not true dimensions.
No, I think that the next dimension up would instantly be unfathomable. Like, prime example of this, talking about how dynamics of things don't work. The Philadelphia experiment, I think, is one of like the prime examples of 3D beings going into a 4D reality. Within that 4D reality, this gets into the whole idea of even like how the tesseract works, that has this square that's rotating inside of this constant square. If there's always these things that have these amorphic shapes and they don't actually have these solid structural shapes, then you end up with stuff like what supposedly happened at the Philadelphia experiment, where when they went into this other dimension, everything was blended through each other. There wasn't anybody that was part of the ship. Everything was kind of blended through itself. But when it came back into this 3D reality, it was in between the shifts that made it so that people were stuck in between these two different objects. It's not that the laws like work differently in the way that they try to make it sound in like, you know, science fiction, where it's like, I'm going to go into this reality and push my hand through an object. No, it's the way that that reality is functioning is already unfathomable to you. You just existing in that reality, like you don't even understand what you're seeing, what you're comprehending, how any of it's functioning. Like it's not just this, oh, I'm going to step into another reality. Like they try to make it sound on sci-fi. Like if you go into another dimension, dude, more than likely, I feel like you're going to come back not being structurally sound anymore, because you're just going to be mind blown by what you saw. And I feel like the closest example you can even get to this is DMT experiences, specifically DMT experiences, but psychedelic experiences in general. But even within that little dipping your toe within the water, you have all of this prolific stuff that you learn, and you come back and you can't remember even a speck of it. You remember like 2% of what you experienced while on this DMT trip, because this other place that you're going, this higher dimension, your brain can't perceive it once it comes back. So even if you could travel to another dimension, I don't think you'd have any memory of even being there, like they make it sound like you would in sci-fi, like simply just stepping back.
No, of course. You know, you're absolutely right. That, like, say, like in the Rick and Morty dimensions, right? The portal gun, like their dimensions are just these weird realms of like gimmicks. Like there's a blender dimension, and like all the idea of like there's a dimension where you, and you hear this a lot in like pop culture, there's a dimension where you are doing the things that you want to do. There's a dimension where you're living your fullest potential, and there's a dimension where you're dead, and there's a dimension where you married some other woman than the woman that you married, or there's a dimension where you've done certain XYZ, like the coin flip theory. You know, every coin flip, heads or tails, is a dimension where it landed the other way. That's not dimensions. That's not true dimensional reality. What you said is right. Dimensions are completely, it's not another level in the video game. It's not another level where you're like, oh, now mushrooms rule America and the world, and that people are, you know, live upside down in caves. It's not that. It's fucking every physical reality that governs your perspective is now elevated and accentuated. That I'll send you the link, and a quick just like breakdown of that 11D video. Each dimension gets a greater control and aspect of time. Put simply, each 11 dimension, and each dimension as it ascends in order, is like, say, fourth dimension, you have now the awareness of time. You can't affect time. You can't change time. You can't control time, but you can see it. You can see it organically, just like 3D objects. You can see the space dimension. You can see their trajectories in time. They're like, you can see an arrow being launched and it hitting the ground, hitting the target. You can see a man being born and the day he dies, all together. 5D is being able to control that, is being able to alter that by putting yourself in literally situations where you weren't. 6D is to be able to exist parallel to, like, you know, one's actions and one's inactions, where you can exist with awareness of both universes. Then it goes 6D, 7D, 8D, 11, and, you know, all the way 9D, 10D, 11D, in which you're controlling entire causalities of universes being created. You can create one universe one way, and you're aware of the other universe created in the simultaneous but complementary fashion. And you start seeing things like, you know, the universe itself represented as merging independent realities of physics, and in the intersection between them, the Vesica Pisces of these two circles. So imagine two circles of counter forces. There's a thesis and an antithesis, literally one and then the other polar opposite negative universe, and they are merging, and you exist in the intersection between them, able to kind of manipulate the flow between the two, etc. That is like the realm of the gods. That is spiritual, the realm of gods in
At
terms
that
of
point,
authority and power. Is that you're like literally,
if you're considering like 11th dimensional beings and their concept and how they would interact with reality, wouldn't that simply mean that like at that point free will is a non-existent thing? Like,
of course. Of course, that's like, and it's not to be insulting or anything, but that's like a junior level concept. The idea of free will or freedom, anything that can't be predicted, chaos. Like everything has, and I think that's like a classic. Any intellectualization of concepts disproves the notion of unpredictability in any fashion. Everything can be predicted as long as the metrics are presented, both before time and the precedent afterwards. Everything is a matter of organization. Is a matter of the ability. Like, it may all be raw data. It may be all chaos, but no, it's not. It's all about the perception of this event. So any events. If I dropped this glass and broke it, if I was casual about it, it would just be a chaotic assembly of broken glass thrown to the chance of winds. But if I was a mathematical supercomputer, I could predict where each one of these shards would land.
so
And I would do so with like the weight of the glass, and I would be, like I said, that supercomputer has the mind of a god, whereas the man has a mind of a monkey. The man just goes, "Oh, that was chaotic and violent, and I can't actually break it down through the sheer impression of the phenomenon of the sound and the fury of the universe." But in these higher dimensional realms, and that's not even a higher dimensional thing, and that's a 3D thing, being able to objectify and think with data and with logic, becoming an elevated type of enlightened intellectual being rather than the animal reactionary being. The higher dimensions, the phenomenology, like the fear of death, doesn't exist because life and death are but a phenomenon, and you can always go like Slaughterhouse-5. Kurt Vonnegut wrote about this in Slaughterhouse-5. The aliens have this 4D potential. They can't affect time, and they must experience it, but they don't have to endure it. They know exactly how and when they're all going to die individually, but they choose just not to be in that moment. I mean, they have to eventually, they have to always suffer that moment, but they can choose to always be in their happiest moments. They have control over this element of time that way. Men will never be able to understand that. So the idea, like human nature, is not built on this idea of alien nature. They can't, and then the idea is even like, why aren't they existentially tortured by the fact that they can always just go to the day they die, or they can always go to the day they're born? They can always go to any day in between.
Well, this is like a weird thing to think about, though, because then you'd have to almost kind of come up with like a way to be able to entertain yourself, because you simply could just end it at any specific time. So you don't get into that like parallel loop of, or that thought loop of like the vampire that, you're infinite and you're stuck within this time and you can't go on. If you could simply just go to a time and simply end it all, like clearly there's bigger purpose into what you're doing. Like, I think it was on the Orville. There's this episode, or it was either the Orville or it was Star Trek. I think it was the Orville. But they were talking about this group of entities, essentially, that their time moves significantly faster than what our time does. So every single time this planet disappears and comes back from this black hole like warp, they instantly jump like 10,000 years into the future, or whatever the crazy number was. So they're sitting there for a while and they end up jumping through a bunch of these different loops. And eventually the society gets to a point where like they're just not there anymore and they don't understand where the hell they went. So then later on, there's this like episode where it's almost kind of like a Q type thing, if you're familiar with Star Trek, that all of a sudden like reality starts bending, starts contorting, all this type of stuff. And all of a sudden everybody on the ship starts dying and they don't understand what's happening. All these people are dying in these different ways. And then all of a sudden these beings come and they basically just say, yeah, we've ascended past needing to exist as a society like you perceive. So we've gotten to the point now where we basically will do things for the thought of for the thought of it or for the thought experiment of it. So they basically said, we have the opportunity to die, but we don't want to die. So what we've chose to do is we've altered your reality so that we could experience death through your eyes without actually experiencing it. And then you get into this whole aspect of, all of this occult philosophy behind the whole idea of experience and the importance of experience. Once you get to a point where you're beyond death, the most important thing starts becoming experience. But if you could go and experience death, that's obviously not the end all be all anymore. It's the experience of any possible simple little thing you could possibly experience. And then that gets into even the higher dimensional being concept with, I'm going to go live a life as an ant just for the sake of doing it as an experience. And then I'm on a weird train with this one, but, is it possible, and I'm sure that a lot of people have thought about this, that, all of us could potentially be these beings, and it's a matter of we are currently living within an experience that we're trying to experience because we know that we're forever infinite, but we're trying to experience something from the perspective of if we thought we're going to die, for example, because the experiment doesn't work if at the end of the day, you're not actually going to get hurt and die. If you want to fully live the experience, you have to have your mind wiped to be within that experience.
It's like a video game. And if you could not die in a video game, if you could not lose in a video game, no matter what video game it is, it's not fun. And that's, a matter of debate and whatever. But this is true. A game has to be difficult. It has to be challenging, not impossible, but you have to be able to die in it. You have to be able to lose for you to be able to win and to feel anything in that victory. If it's just you pick up the controller and congratulations, you win, that's not a fun game. A fun game is something that's impossible at first until you master it, and then it becomes something that's like good. Like you beat it, right? Like the idea of it, it's essentially the same. Life lived, in God mode, in easy mode, is not a good life. It's not a fun life. It's not a life, even if they had to die, but they were always in a lap of luxury or whatever and never had to suffer. It's not truly existing. That's why you get the examples of Buddha or Jesus who die on the cross, who died suffering terribly on the cross. It's the Passion Play is a big point of the Jesus Christ story. The suffering, the absolute agony that is experienced in death, not just dying in your sleep and not just, you become an old man and, you die surrounded by your loved ones in multiple generations. No, to die persecuted for crimes you did not commit as an innocent man in a torturous, brutalizing, body-destroying way, that is it's a metaphorical, it's a spiritual idea, what you're saying. What is any of this except what you said? Like, our souls are not our own, are not just our own. But I think this is not a new thing. This is what you stumbled upon is a very ancient, I guess philosophically ancient understanding of what the debate of the soul is and what has been marred by the Abrahamic faith. Abrahamic monotheism is really, really bad. It has messed up a lot of people and has created a zealotry in the modern world that forsakes even like late romantic era. And I'm talking 1800s, 1900s philosophy, like 20th century philosophy. I forget who it was. I think it's Immanuel Kant who created like the monad. The monad is an oversoul. The monad is just it's a philosophical intellectualization of a group soul, a combined consensus soul, a soul that makes tribes and cultures and nations and states and peoples. Men have, all men have one soul. It's a collective archetype of man, and all women have one soul, the archetype of woman. And then you get this is the origins of paganism. This is why Ra, and you have Ra and Isis. Ra, the sun god. All men are the sun. All men are the solar power, the solar deity of fertility. All men are represented by Zeus and they put in the Greek way, or Thor or whatever, Odin. And then you get all women. All women are represented by these sacred feminine goddesses, and then they fuck, they interchange, they marry, they fight, they have all these human behaviors because they're archetypical human. They're the cloth of which humans are cut from, the examples of humanity.
I mean, this could even go into somewhat of like the biblical narrative, for example, that if you are viewing it from that perspective and you talk about this, like, you are mine from this lineage, from this lineage, from this lineage, from this lineage, you could be dealing with these 11th dimensional beings, let's just say, where there's simply a split between the two, and they're simply just doing this for the sake of, again, they have no other purpose than to try to do these two different things. They have one side that is the embodiment of the one that is trying to be the good, which is the one side of it. And then you have the other side that just, again, for the sake of the experience of it, is running the side where their whole intention and the experience that they want to get is pain and misery. Almost something like the Cenobites, for example, from like Hellraiser. So you have these dimensional beings that one side's for the good, one side's for the evil, and then they go down through these layers, like we were kind of saying, that they're almost essentially controlling every single small group personality because they are just subcategories of those two things. And then you're essentially dealing with two beings that, again, this goes into almost the narrative of almost every single religion. Like, it can all go back to this multi-dimensional perspective of reality.
Now, to say that, though, is not to make it like, so when we say multi-dimensional, it's not to decree its power. It's not to diminish its power. It's not to be like, but it's to like, okay, so I am fascinated culturally with, as mankind evolves, mankind advances, then the words we use for things become better. They become more accurate. They become more understanding. And we've I don't really believe a lot in history. I think there was a great disaster in the 1800s, like a comet strike or multiple comet strikes on the earth and even until 1902, Great Reset happened. And literally as recent as 1902, all of human history was rewritten, right, and redefined by the vanities of men who had reclaimed the world in power. So this is basically the Fallout vaults open, people come out, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, right? And these people created the world's history according to their own power. They were Freemasons, the Freemasonic peoples, and all their tribes and stuff. They were aware of the past, but they didn't want to keep the past originally the way it was. The past, I believe, was very honest about this stuff, but the modern interpretations have been lost have lost that truth to it. This is why you get things like the occult. The occult, which has been vilified, has a lot of truth to it, like Kabbalah. And as someone who is, a raving anti-Semite, according to some, but I'm anti-Zionist, I'm anti-politicized Judaism, I'm anti-war crimes, I'm anti-genocide. No matter who portrays them, I'm anti-supremacist and I'm anti-racist. And that's like a big problem with the Jews, too, because they're very racist and they're very supremacist about their own ideas. But Kabbalah, do you know that we're talking about 11D, 11 dimensions? Kabbalah has 11 points of the tree of life, which is the Sephiroth. And the name of angels of the highest holy order is the seraphim, the serpent, which is represented through the seraphim and the actual representation of the networking of these dots, these nodes, these nexus points of dimensional embodiment, incarnation, fits on a human being as a map of chakras. And things like the Kundalini rising serpent of yoga is the serpent that is represented as connecting all the 11th. And once all the 11 are connected, it becomes the seraphim, the serpents of God, the dragons of God, the angels of the most highly holy order, the ones that literally sit around the throne. This is exactly what we're talking about. I cannot point out any more obviously that this is all 11, and the idea of even 11 in the occult circles is 1-on-1, the two most prime numbers, and like the origins point is that 11 literally means magic, in magic symbolism, and to use 11 in any case, it means magic. It's to invoke magic. Like 33, for example, is just 11 three times. People think 33 is really important, but it's just 11 three times. It's 11. 11 is the number that's important, not 33.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show. It's all the
This is just shit like that. This is like I could talk about this stuff all day and all night. The idea of occultism just being representations of multidimensional beings, and then the antithesis of that, like Hinduism, for example, to the West is very niche and kitsch and stuff like that. It's very cool for people to go to India and like do meditation stuff. India in Hinduism, they have the higher 7 heavens and the lower 7 hells, the Lorca, and you go into these heavens and they extend all the way up, and you have to be reincarnated to each one of these after living various lifestyles, etc., like asceticism, purity. But then you also have to reincarnate individually in these cycles for millions of years. So it's like not only are you in, like, say, the baseline existence, but then when you get to the heaven above you, say you're good, you have to exist in that heaven for thousands of years. Then you have to graduate to the heaven above that heaven, and that heaven opens your eyes to the heaven you were previously into and seeing its faults and its traps, etc., its physical imprisonment. And then the heaven above that shows you even greater enlightenment to the heaven. You thought you were in heaven. You're now in a super heaven where you're in like the heavenly of the heaven. And then it goes 7 higher than that. And hells are exactly the same, but inverse, where they become more material in ways of like, if you want fortunes and fame and power, etc., you go to these lower negative realms, hells, where you exist in these moments of like immortality almost, but like you rule as a demon prince. And like these lands are like the Naga, the Reptilians, for example. The Reptilians are Naga. They live within the 7 hells, and they're extremely sophisticated, civilized, and wealthy beings. They have enormous fortunes and stuff like that, gold, like treasures, etc. And that's exactly the description of dragons in the West. They hoard treasures. It's all the same. And you're like, oh, so these negative chakra beings, these negative hell beings live in subterranean realms, and they have like the opposite evil powers, whereas the higher dimensions can see all the good and connective, connective orders between systems. They can see like how to excel in the anti-systems, and exactly, like it's in every single ancient occult or religious or philosophical theories is the idea of the subjectivity of reality and the
spiritual up, material down. That's what it is universally through everything.
And it doesn't matter exactly what culture or being. It's just like if a society exists long enough, they start realizing this. And the thing is, it's not a matter of it being top secret. It's just a matter of it being hidden in plain sight.
Rediscovered and reinterpreted too, because I think that's one of the biggest things is that people have figured this out multiple times throughout history. But the problem is trying to describe it in the language of that time, and then that time passes where now that language doesn't make sense to the future generations anymore. Because I'm sure that even just simply looking at it from the sake of like the Bible, even beyond the whole, interdimensional concept or multi-dimension concept, the people that were reading the Bible at the time that it was happening versus the people reading it now were interpreting it in a very, very different way. And it's the same with all of this occult stuff, that when people were at this time that they were understanding things, they were putting it in a way that they could understand it at the time. And now that we're looking at it 200, 300, maybe even farther than that years later, now the context of that makes no sense because the examples that they're trying to use within their language aren't examples that we would use within our modern language anymore.
Yeah, and also, like I said, keep in mind that I think the world was completely reset in 1902. So it's like the Bible that we have now is in no way, shape, or form connected to the Bibles of the early Gnostic Christians or even the early Catholic Christians or any Christian sect like the Cathars or the Circumcillions or like anything else that existed at the time. We have, and this is like, even if you don't believe in a Great Reset, unequivocally true that has always been reinterpreted every century, if not every other decade, to fit the political and cultural zeitgeist of the time it was written, including the rise of England, the rise of the English gospel, the English evangelios, and the English translation of the Old Testament, the Pentateuch, the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. And then, of course, the cultural Judaization of Christianity throughout the 20th century in the West, prioritizing the Old Testament and Jewish mythology from its Canaanite and Phoenician roots into a Christianized Protestant mindset and culture that is not Jewish to an extreme. They have country boys like you and me in rural America thumping the Old Testament Deuteronomy and Leviticus and talking about how, you know, the people of Israel this and the people of Israel that and all that. And it's 100% Zionism's politicized version of spirituality. It's not the fact that I'm like, oh, I don't believe in the Abrahamic God or despise all children of Abraham, etc. But I can tell you, honestly, that a lot of the stuff they have prioritizing and Christianity in the Southern Baptist churches of America, because I can only speak about myself, is Jewish fairy tales. And it's 100% Zionist fairy tales, Zionist approved fairy tales. Do you know, for example, all of the Torah, which is the basis for the Old Testament, you know, when they survived during the Roman Empire and stuff, when they had, like, you know, during the Protestant revolutions, it was written in 200 BC. Ezra, the rabbi, canonized the unwritten book of the word, like Lord of the Word, which was unwritten until the fall of Babylon. And then he canonized it as a loyal Babylonian rabbi to both save Babylonian history as well as to create a written, objectifiably, like, you know, this is canonized Jewish history, because it was so diversified that no two Jews actually agree on what to believe was important. This is true. This is in Jewish history. A single rabbi had to say, enough is enough of the debate. I'm going to write down what is Jewish history. In 200 BC, Rome existed at this point. This has nothing to do with ancient history. The stories of Moses, the stories of Daniel, the stories of, you know, King Solomon, all of that. We're talking, like, people talk about shit about Jesus Christ, about when the Gospels were written 80 years after Jesus Christ's life, 50 to 80 years afterwards, right? Like, he got crucified and they wrote it afterwards. But they wrote it well afterwards, like generations afterwards. Imagine 3,000 years. Imagine 2,000 years. And they're writing all this history. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the idea. Like, why do you think that Christians are so hammered with stories like Noah's Ark, or the fall of Babel, or Adam and Eve, or King David killing Goliath, or these stories? And to be honest, I've gone to Sunday school. I went hard Christian 2010s, and I was like fundamentalist Christian, Protestant, super soldier kind of guy. And I remember looking around being like, they're not talking about Christ. They're talking about almost 100% Jewish mysticism, Jewish mythologies, like the idea from Adam and Eve. That's Babylonian to the core. It only makes sense through a Babylonian lens. It makes no sense why anyone would speak of this in any kind of way in a similar, the serpent in the garden and the apple and the sexual, you know, relationship between man and woman, etc. Lilith. It even includes, if you truly know about Apocrypha, Lilith was the woman that was created before Eve. That's a Babylonian Sumerian deity. That's a demon in Babylon, Sumeria. Why is this included in Jewish mysticism and the idea of Christian origins? That you can't be a good Christian, you can't be a truly knowledgeable Christian unless you know that. And this is true, like unless you're actually are researching all this stuff. Look at Moses, the stories of Moses, the Pentateuch of Moses, the 5 books of Moses, the Exodus, the Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy, all of it. That's critical into understanding the fabric of Christian, mindsets, of Jewish mindsets, of monotheistic mindsets, Abrahamic mindsets, Islamic mindsets as well. And it's all Babylonian. It's all built on systems of extreme paganism that involved human sacrifice. And they'll talk about it. Abraham with binding of Isaac. These are the things, and you might be like, well, they rebelled against the human sacrifice. And I don't know that it was written in 200 BC, 3,000 years after that was supposed to happen. Like the entire stories of it, they're metaphors, they're symbols, but they're so propagandized into a specific point to recreate Babylon. And that's why we see ourselves in a world that we're in right now. It's Babylon. Noahide laws are Babylonian laws. The Tower of Babel is the origin of Babylon. It's pre-flood, the concept of this nation that they're recreating in us. And it's just more 2 cents. You can look at it spiritually as just the flowering and the blooming of a man's soul with whatever religion they're given. If I gave a man Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita, he's going to flower and bloom into his religious and spiritual self. If I give a man Christianity, he's going to flower and bloom into a Christian. If I give a man Islam, he's going to flower and bloom into Islam. But the Abrahamic sources of it, the way they're hammered into people's heads, I almost wholesale will reject now all of the teachings of the Jewish Old Testament. I will 100%. And looking at philosophically too, I think Jesus Christ did the same thing. I think he closed the book on the Old Testament. It's one of the things that's preserved in his 4 books, and it's why they want the New Testament to be marked as anti-Semitic. This is true. You can look it up. Rabbis and Jewish sponsors around the world want New Testaments to be labeled as anti-Semitic, like with warning labels and stuff.
I was going to say, you simply
Old Testament.
Say you have Synagogue of Satan for sure. I know that's one that everybody regularly uses. I mean, just off of that, what they're trying to sounds like a ridiculous concept to me.
Well, I mean, I can get to it. Like, that's the thing. Like, Christians think like, well, you have to believe in Noah's Ark.
Oh, I mean, not what you're saying, but just trying to mark the New Testament as being anti-Semitic. That just sounds like a ridiculous concept to me.
Oh yeah, and they'll do it too, and they're going to get away with it, and they're going to do it too. And like we already see pastors apologizing and trying to debate the language. Like there's just parts of like John, for example, where he's like the Jews are the enemies of all people and stuff like that. And this is true. This is like the idea, like what is the matrix that we're living in? What robs us of our ability to observe freedom and the truth and to liberate ourselves spiritually? And even in Jesus' day, it was the old temple of Solomon. It was the old temple of imposters who claimed themselves to be the chosen people of God, who were not the chosen people of God, who actually were already condemned because of their actions multiple times throughout history. The serpent worshiping, human sacrificing, Moloch worshiping, every case. It's not like historically argument. When Moses goes up to Mount Sinai to get the commandments, he comes down and they built a golden calf and they're worshiping him through hedonistic orgies, and he throws the fucking commandments at them, splitting the actual earth open, and it swallows them whole in fire. That's what happens. This is in the books of Moses. And even Jesus says, you don't even follow the books of Moses. Like the Jews themselves do not obey the books of Moses. They think Moses itself is like, a kind of like gimmick. And it's because they don't believe that Moses is real. It's like the idea behind it. They don't believe that things they made Christians believe openly debating religion is weird, especially since no one wants to talk to me about it. And it's not like I tricked you into it. Well, it's like, because I will say this because we were talking about, there is what you're allowed to talk about. And even if it's questioning the truth or conspiracies or whatever, and there's stuff that you're not allowed to talk about. What you're allowed to talk about is Jewish mysticism as true, giants, like in the Old Testament giants, the Rephaim, etc., the Nephilim. You can talk about those things. Those are purely Jewish fairy tales. The Nephilim are the explanations for Greek heroes. They're not Sasquatches. They're not giant men who are 30 feet tall. They're not cannibalistic overlords who rule through terror. They are the descriptions of Greek heroes to other Jews and Semitic tribes. If you want to call them Semitic tribes, they're not. Semite, for example, comes from the word Yosemite. We have Yosemite National Park. It's the same geographical area. Semites originally come from the Yosemite area. All people originated in North America. That's another thing. I'm not gonna go. But the idea of this Middle Eastern origination, right, comes from the Atlantean refugees who came from the West. And they came from the land of the setting sun. And they came across the sea, across the spine of gods, which was the Atlantic Ocean. And as the sea peoples attacked and basically colonized the Mediterranean area. This was the invasions of, and originally before that, there was the origins of like the Hyksos and the Canaanites and the Phoenicians and the Egyptians and the Goshians and like the Greeks and the Cretians. This is all the stories of where it comes from, Atlantis. It's the origins of Israel, Isis, Ra, and Elohims. And it's the idea behind this pagan society that came from the West. And they came from the West and they colonized. But the idea behind it has been bastardized into like the idea of the Genesis and Noah's the Garden of Eden and Noah's flood, Tower of Babel. These are fake world histories. These have no basis in reality. And I think that there's so much, like I said, fundamentally, you have to always look at the foundation. You have to look at the foundation of all thinking if you're going to think correctly, if you're going to see the truth, if you're going to get to the right answer. It starts from the very first step. It starts from the very bedrock, the ground, like the ground floor. And what they have teaching the Old Testament, Exodus, Genesis, from page 1, Genesis 1. And to Genesis, like, you know what, I think Genesis 6 is very famous now with L.A. Missoula's crowd and cult, etc., with the giants, you know, the angels invaded with people, etc. All Jewish Babylonian mythology, all complete nonsense, all fairy tales.
Well, a lot of people look at it as the reverse. They have the whole thing with the Epic of Gilgamesh, but then they compare it with Esau and Nimrod, and they say that story parallels that story. But if you're viewing it from the perspective that you're saying, then that would mean that Esau paralleled the Epic of Gilgamesh, because the Epic of Gilgamesh would have been the original Babylon interpretation of the story.
Yeah, well, remember, I'm not saying that these are ancient stories. I'm saying they're ancient stories, but I'm saying that we don't have ancient records for them. This was all literally like I said, 200 BC, Rome was already a superpower. Rabbis who were fleeing the fallen empire of Babylon were basically like, let's write down the history of Babylon's origins in its own words. We'll compartmentalize them and we'll save them as Jewish teachings, and we'll say that they're Jewish. But in reality, they're Babylonian. They're a city-state in the desert on the Tigris and Euphrates. It's like saying any nation in any mythology, any religion, like there's like also fake, the survival of Thebes or Athens or something or whatever, like I don't want to, like, if you don't want to be triggered with Christianity and the fundamentals of Christianity, say like Viking paganism, for example. What if Viking paganism was just the survival of like an empire who had a religion and an empire fell, like Gallic or whatever? And that's the Gauls. The Gauls were before the Vikings. So Viking culture was Gallic religion. When Gaul fell to Rome, its priests were like, let's just go up north. We'll fucking create our own nation again, and we'll use our mythology, but talk to the natives in like ways they can understand. They just propagate basically the old ways, the druidic ways, in this new way called Norse mythology, which are just druids. After the Romans forced them into exile. And then you look, what the Romans forced the Jews into? Exile. The Romans eventually attacked Jerusalem, purged the Jews, forced them into exile. Called it Palestine, set up a temple to Zeus in Jerusalem. This was the third temple, was the temple of Zeus. That was put up there. By the way, that's exactly what they're talking about. Like, that's the idea of, like, there's different, like, occultist ideas behind it, but they've been rewritten to the idea that now the Jews seek to build the third temple, etc. And it's like that was already a thing that already came and gone. It's historically a reality, but now it's a spiritual question. It's spiritual idealism. Same thing with Christianity. When I hear people talk about, like, could Bigfoot be Nephilim? I think you've had a couple of guests on your podcast that talk about that. It's very popular. It's very popular. It's just not even an accusation or an insult to them. People are confused about the Bible and the language of it. Nephilim, for example. All of it can just easily be erased. That's just Jewish fairy tales. It's mythology. It's a Jewish mythology. For example, they believe they built the pyramids. They believed they were subjected for 400 years in the land of Goshen, and they built the pyramids as a people. That's been proven incorrect. That's not spiritually metaphoric for anything. But when I was talking to Masons about this is a huge spiritual metaphor. Coming up from Egypt, rising from the southern regions of Egypt, like you rise from the southern chakras of your basal root knowledge, your desires, fornication. Like, you raise into the mind chakra, you raise into the heart of Israel, you raise geographically from Egypt to the Exodus to Israel to Jerusalem, which is the heart, the mind. And then, like, you think of these things and like the alchemy behind it, but it's not literal. And it's not even intentionally to be literal. It is literally like if a group of people who seek to survive are writing children's stories so that fundamentally they can MK Ultra generations into propagating their views forever, which is what they did. And they started this as early as 2000 BC, but ultimately as late as the 1800s and the 1900s, specifically the early 1900s, like 20th century, but like into like 1920, 1930, 1940. And they only recently got like this much power. Protestants and Christian fundamentalists are very new. They've only started existing since the 1950s. Before that, Christians were like much more mystical, much more like fucking batshit insane, and much more like Mormons. Like Mormons were like a good example of like Christian cultists and stuff like that in the 1800s. They were like, I should have 7 wives because the prophet Ezekiel had 7 wives, or the prophet Isaiah once slept with his sister. Why can't I sleep with my sister? That was true. That's like a pseudo archaeological, like primitive Zionist, Masonic, ancient Egyptian Babylonian cult called Mormonism.
See, it's funny that you mentioned that because all their symbology goes back to like marks of the Solomon stuff. Like it's
yeah. I know it's a jagged pill to swallow and stuff, and you're like, that's not true. And you're like, yeah, wait, it is. And because King Solomon, for example, 100% pagan, 100% just the most bizarre psychedelic story about sorcery and demon fucking possession, and like no matter where you look from it, it's either like completely apocryphal, like it doesn't even exist really in the Bible, because King Solomon's only really the part of Ecclesiastes, which is basically talking about vanities and the meaninglessness of life and the meaninglessness of pursuit. So the surviving records of King Solomon are his opinions of life are very much like Buddha, where it's like it doesn't matter really who you are or what you do, because in the end we're all equal. It doesn't matter. You're nothing. You're ultimately nothing when you start, and you're ultimately nothing when you end, and it doesn't matter, because it's like this whim of lunacy almost. Like and it's just suffering, and it's just sadness, and it's death, and it's loss, and it's melancholy. It doesn't matter, because what if you live your best life and accrue a fortune, and then when you die, a fool takes it over and loses it? You have no power at that point. Death is the ultimate equalizer. Like in Ecclesiastes. Sorry, I said that already. Like when it says the breath of a man and the breath of an animal go to the same destination with their long sleep. With their death, they both die. There is no difference between the breath of a man and the breath of an animal. It's the same air. And that kind of wisdom gets replaced with a man who had 1,500 wives, and he built a temple with fucking 72 demons, and he had a special ring, and he was like, Beelzebub, I control you with my special ring. And Beelzebub was like,
well, of course, you got to have a crazy story to cover up the nihilism. You can't just have the nihilism just be sitting there.
instead of the actual spiritual truth of life, of actual what a man does, what a man realizes when he wakes up, when he achieves enlightenment, and he realizes that materially, it's all fucked, it's all already cast, the dice have already been cast, and we have no free will. It's all predetermination. It's all factors like consequence and circumstance and stuff. And that no matter what pursuit, mirth or seriousness or power or kindness, it ultimately is going to be just a futile gesture at the inescapability of man's, short life and short existence. And in that, there is so much wisdom. There is actually the most wisdom in that. It's the only book of the Old Testament that I actually like, is the book of Ecclesiastes. And it's the only one I think that's actually worth reading. I'll give it up for the last three, Micah, Nahum, and Habakkuk. I'll give it up for the last three of the Old Testament. Those are really badass books. I like those. But Ecclesiastes is like the definitive. If you were to read anything from this, it's this. And that's the only, and it's not unique. It's not unique at all. It's like I said, Buddhism, or it's Hinduism, or it's Zen, Taoism, or it's, even monastic Christianity. If you want to look at it that way, because Christianity is not connected to the Old Testament, as I've already mentioned. So Christianity is an independent thing. Christ talks about the vanity of life, the materialism of life. The only person who saves his life is the one who doesn't want to save his life, the one who gives up his life. And if you give up your life, then you've achieved some kind of immortality as you're sacrificed. As the sacrifice is made, as you make your own sacrifice.
Hold on tight, guys. This is our last break, so stay tuned. And we are back to the show. So let's hop right in. Man, this has gotten extremely deep. And like you had mentioned, dude, I love actually getting a chance to talk about some of this stuff. So considering that we're running about 3 hours now, I would love to come back for another round and actually be able to just straight on hit this and the four-dimensional stuff. Because I feel like we've covered so many different topics in this that I want to be able to single in on this one to make it so that give you an opportunity to talk about it, like you said, because you don't get to talk about this type of stuff with too many people. And it honestly, like you were kind of inferring in, it's all connected, dude. And I feel like this is going to be, how do I describe it? I guess like the future of where a lot of this research ends up going. Because I feel like this is inevitably the only place that stuff can really go when you continuously keep diving into conspiracies, spirituality, all this. This seems to be like the end-all, be-all point, but with this day and age, we have like a new perspective on this stuff. Like, rather than looking at it from this old, I don't even want to say a cult, but like more like a mythical perspective. Instead, now we're kind of viewing it in a little bit more of like a grounded reality perspective, that it's almost like something that's achievable to be somewhat understood. Like,
the reason why I kind of bring up the idea of like why I don't like the Old Testament so much is because when I was an atheist, because I'm not an atheist now, I'm not an atheist now, but when I was an atheist, a big reason why people shit on the Bible and shit on Christianity and shit on religious people in general is because that is such a unrealistic story. It's it's so silly. There's an American Dad episode, and I think it's hilarious because it's the idea of like the dad trying to talk Christianity in this plebeian pop culture way to his son, and the characters are like, "Oh, Noah's Ark or Garden of Eden," and he's all like, where did the classic foils? If it's all from two people, is everyone a product of incest? And Noah's Ark, how was it big enough to fit all the animals, and why did it drop the kangaroos off only in Australia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? The ideas behind the absurdities, the silliness of religion is in fundamentally taking these things seriously. And the answer to that is obviously we don't need we don't need all the Old Testament. In fact, none of it actually matters. It's in fact so obviously non-Christian. The Old Testament is so obviously non-Christian. It has very little to do with anything in the New Testament, to the point that outside of the outside of the Old Testament and the books that they actually occur in, no one in the Bible mentions Noah's Ark. No one in the Bible mentions Adam and Eve. No one in the Bible mentions Moses, except for to call out people for not worshiping Moses. And that's a fact. You can look that up. Jesus never talks about Adam and Eve. Jesus never talks about Noah's Ark. Jesus never talks about the Old Testament mythology, things from Exodus. It's irrelevant and unimportant to the actual ministries of Jesus Christ. And they've somehow connected the two, these Babylonian origin myths and the ultimate arrival and teachings of our Messiah, the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And they are not connected, but they have been forced to be connected by the powers that seek to confuse everybody. Which is why they're rallying. They've hijacked it, like you said. They hijacked Christianity, which is the study of Jesus Christ and his life and his teachings and his sacrifice, his salvation of mankind through this blood sacrifice, and the becoming of the logos of the universe. And that's true. But they've created this necessity, like, well, if you believe in Jesus Christ, you must also believe in the story of Adam and Eve. You must also believe in Noah's Ark. You must also believe in these absolute fantastical fairy tales that should belong in a Sinbad's 1001 Arabian Nights or whatever the hell. Like, these are that fantastical of versions of like just tall tales and stuff like that. And people have spent thousands of hours trying to study the mythologies in symbolist ways. Like, there's a spiritual symbolism here. There's a spiritual code here. There's something that God is trying to teach us through these stories. And that is absolutely not the case, because the God who wrote those stories and the God that those people whose stories believed in was the serpent of Babylon. And if you don't believe me, there's verifiable archaeological proof that in the temples of Jerusalem before Jesus Christ's age, like in the kingdom of Solomon and stuff, the Jewish symbol of worship was a serpent on a cross. We know it now as the Caduceus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying.
Dude, it's one of those things that once you're aware of it, you can't unsee it. But until you actually see it, people are just going to keep living in these domes of fantasy worlds.
Well, this thing is like when people are like, how can I just find it it took me years. It took me years to realize like there was a gap in believing like Adam and Eve and the serpent story. Like I was like, I don't believe that. I don't jive with that at all. I don't resonate with that. There's no truth in that. Like, Adam and Eve, and then the serpent was like, come on, you'll be like gods. Let me tempt the woman because she's weak and sexual, like, symbolism of the apple and nudity. And then, like that's a Babylonian story. And the Babylonian story of the Garden of Eden, they used to live in Babylon in cities that had gardens like mansions. These were estates like plantations, and these lords were the Baal of these gardens of Eden, the land of Eden, the gardens of Ed. The hanging gardens of Babylon have never been discovered, yet they're considered a existing world world wonder, like the pyramids of Egypt or the Great Wall of China. The hanging Babylonian guardians are a modern translation of these gardened cities that were basically like giant mansions that were just like in the middle of the desert. They had all these gardens growing in the middle of them. That is like literally, it's so lost in translation. But when it's like, yeah, that's objective Babylonian truth that they had walled gardens, like homes, like plantation homes, like, mansions that were walled and they had gardens. That's how they like to live. It was desert on the outside, garden on the inside. And then the story of two young lovers who disobey the master of the house because the serpent, the penis, tempts them through sexual congress to be like the master of the house and breed and stuff. And you're like, oh, it fucking makes so much sense. It's just Sumerian Babylonian bullshit. It's people who grew. It's all it is. Sumerian Babylonian bullshit. It's not like relevant to America in 2025. It's not irrelevant to an American who lives in the 21st century. It's not relevant to the modern world. It's not relevant to Christianity. It's not relevant to modern day salvation theory or salvation thinking. It's not relevant because it's not real. It's gone. Whatever was real, it's gone. It's gone forever. Babylon's fallen. Let it fall. Let it sit. Get out of Babylon. Come out of Babylon, guys. There's no need to repeat the fairy tales of the people who enslaved us thousands of years later. They're dead. Nebuchadnezzar's gone. He's not coming back. He's not going to throw us in the fucking oven like with, Shadrach and Amigo, or whatever the hell. Enough for not worshiping the statue. That's the thing. He's not going to throw us in the fucking ovens, guys. It's like, we're fine. Also, that you start seeing the I don't want to make the parallels, but the idea that in the Bible, in the Old Testament, the Jews who don't want to worship the false god are thrown into an oven and aren't burned. But the idea later of the Holocaust, it's Sumerian Babylonian bullshit. That's the idea behind it. Like, it's their place. Like, get thrown into ovens.
I've never actually caught that before. That is really interesting. I've never thought about it that way. I've never caught that one before.
It's all the same. It's like it's the same fucking thing. It's a playbook. It's just a playbook, man. It's 100% it. It's 1,000. It's the story of a hero with 1,000 faces. It's the story of the same year told, 2026 times so far. Welcome to AD 2026 AD. Same story every year. Same story. It's just told over and over and over again. Starts in January, ends in December. 365 days. If you look at every single year, same things happen. And we are all just programmed to believe. It all just goes back in a big cycle. And these are all artificial structures. But we're told Christmas happens on Christmas. We're told New Year's happens on New Year's. We're told our birthdays happen on our birthdays. We're told elections happen on elections days. We're told the religion is Sunday. You go to school. You don't go to church on Sunday, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these are all just artificial systems that existed as long back as the ancient slave state of Babylon.
Well, man, I guess with that, I always like to end the show with some words of wisdom, and we will definitely come back for a round 2 talking about this one, but at least putting a cap on it for today, man. If there's any words of wisdom you might want to bestow on the listeners, what might it be?
Knowledge is power.
Truth. Ain't no better words.
I'll always say as my final sign off on this one is knowledge is power, because there is no true word spoken. Knowledge is power.
True. That's kind of, I guess, the foundation on almost what the show was built on. So I can't deny that, man. And if anybody wanted to come and follow your work, and I know you always have different stuff going on, be it like I was mentioning, every single time you come on the show, stuff changes up a little bit. Where can people come and find you currently on the internet?
Well, you can go on podpage.com/Fuck Freemasons News or Google Fuck Freemasons News and it should pull up the pod page. That is for my independent journalism and research like this, telling truth to power, exploring radical topics, everything from anti-war, episodes talking about geopolitical issues to like secret societies, the occult, more of like grounded religious debate type of things, exploring religions, talking about sacred texts. This is going to be on the Fuck Freemasons news site. Continuation of the Beyond Top Secret Texan site. You can, for example, read, listen to literally days and days and days of content. I think I have 2 full months worth of episodes on the Fuck Freemasons news thing. And the Beyond Top Secret Texan archives, that's all on Odyssey, the odyssey.com. You can look up that Beyond Top Secret Texan on there. Look for the one that has, 600 plus videos on it. See all the old archive work. And for lighter touches, lighter fare, you can try the Advanced Cryptozoology Exploration Society, which speaks about cryptids, natural phenomenon, paranormal investigation, and, relatively, shallower and more fun, more optimistic, more like, we're talking about Loch Ness Monster, we're talking about Bigfoot, we're talking about Wolfman type things. We're not talking about world shattering, soul breaking type realities of the modern world and matrix that we live in. But we're more talking about why like Bigfoot's real and stuff. So yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you making the time to come on as usual. And of course, I will include all of your links down in the show description. And again, man, I'm looking forward to next time we get to chat and really dive into these 4-dimensional beings and I guess religion as a whole, man.
I think, yeah, definitely. Whatever the wind blows us, I guess, wherever we go in conversation, definitely willing to join you again for another episode. Look forward to it. Thank you very much for having me on.
This podcast is a labor of love, and I want to keep it going for as long as possible. So if you're in a position to support the show and all the hard work behind it, don't forget to go and check out the Patreon with full access for just $2.50 a month with a 7-day free trial so that you guys can see what it's all about. And the next best way to support the show is through donating to the show directly. Any amount that you guys happen to want to donate, anything that you might find value in the show, and you guys can do that through PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. And of course, I will give you guys a big shout out on the show. And if you guys happen to leave a note, then of course I will also read that out on the show. And you guys can also go and check out the Bizarre Reality Media merch store with t-shirts just $15.68 plus shipping, which equals out to about $20, so about average for a t-shirt, and you guys can support the little guy in the process. And last but not least, don't forget to go and check out the affiliate links for Dimension Devices and Sticker Mule with some additional discounts and credits available for you guys. And I know times are tough out there, but if you guys are interested in supporting the show in some other ways, one of the best ways that you guys can do that is by leaving a review or rating for the show anywhere that you guys might be happening to listen to it. And of course, once I find it, I will read it on the show and give you guys a huge shout out. You guys can also go and follow the show on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. You guys could share the show directly through word of mouth with anybody that you think might happen to listen to the show, because grassroots support from listeners like you guys is the only way that shows like this happen to grow. So thank you for anything you guys happen to do. And don't forget to go and watch live shows and video content over there on YouTube, Rumble, and TikTok. And last but not least, you guys can also go and check out my other show, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin. Might be another podcast to get you guys through your work week. And if you guys enjoy my antics over here, you guys will definitely enjoy my antics over there. And every single thing that I mentioned is all available on the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I hope today's show has connected some dots in your own reality, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. Abductees taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey, with a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer. There's so many questions and not enough answers. So if you're interested in mysteries and abnormalities, tune in and listen to Inquiries of Our Reality. So if you're interested in